What is up, Wizards fans? It is draft night. We've made it. We're here. It just got a whole lot more exciting in the last couple minutes. We'll get into all that here over the next course of several hours, potentially. Who knows how long a one-round first day of the draft takes. So, we'll figure all this out. Joining me here, my favorite guy to talk NBA draft with, because we look at this thing differently, but I feel like come up with similar results a lot of the time, which is kind of cool to see different processes. My guy, Kevin Broom, him as So Wizards from the So Wizards podcast, Bolts Forever. He does an amazing job at both places. So, Kevin, thank you for doing this again.
Hey, this was so much fun last year. I'm kind of disappointed that we don't have 2 rounds to get through, but it is what it is.
Yeah, we'll make the best of it. I'm kind of disappointed. I'm on the West Coast coming from work, so I don't have a pallet of Stateside vodkas here with me. Sponsoring the show tonight, as last year, as Stateside Vodka. Their Surfside hard iced teas, hard lemonades, a hard every flavor you can think of realistically. They are all dynamite. And Wizards fans, buckle up, because I think we're going to need a whole bunch of them. You can get them pretty much everywhere in the DMV that sells booze. So run out real quick, get them before between the 2nd and 14th pick now, I guess. So, we'll get all that. The most important thing here, we're doing this for a good cause tonight, raising money for the MS Society. We'll talk about that here in a little bit more detail. The link can be found basically all over my Twitter. So, go out and do that if you can. We're trying to raise money for a good cause. We'll talk more about that as we go. Also brought to you by BetOnline. It's your number one source for all your betting needs this season, from baseball, golf, soccer, UFC, WNBA, you name it. And you can probably, go out and bet on the NBA draft and what crazy shit the Wizards will do next if you want to do that. You can get every stat, matchup line, even live odds. And when the game's over, you can head over to their live casino. You can play poker, blackjack, whatever you want to do. But head to the website today and use our promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, for 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts. All right, so full disclosure, I am in LA for work. I was just meeting with SpaceX randomly, learning about some of their new technology and cool stuff, and I didn't have my phone on because it's a reasonably big meeting, and I'm a true professional in some walks of my life, not on this podcast, but in my day job. And I walked out, and my phone just started literally vibrating out of control in my pocket. Deni is no longer a Wizard, which is actually a bummer. I know, contrary to public belief with some people. I thought Deni was amazing. I thought he has nowhere to go but up here. So I haven't even seen the full trade details here. Kevin, I guess, what's your just initial reaction to the trade here?
So the full trade deals, as best I could tell, is that they sent Avdija to Portland for Malcolm Brogdon, number 14 pick tonight.
Yep.
The 2029 first, which would be the second best pick that Portland has in the first round in 2029. And then 2 second-round picks, and one in 2028, one in 2030. So basically 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and a veteran who they'll presumably trade for
another second.
For another second or something to get something for Brogdon. So what do I think of it? I think it's a little weird in the sense that Deni's 23. He's coming off a pretty good season. It was the best season of his career so far, and I think he's a good, solid player, and I wouldn't have minded keeping him around. I think one of the things that's interesting is that if they're trading Avdija, that's a pretty good deal. I mean, it is a decent haul, right, for him. You're getting 2 firsts, 2 seconds. Okay, that's decent. But, pretty much everybody has to be available in some way. I would imagine Kyle Kuzma is going to be looking, but potentially house shopping this summer.
Yeah, exactly. He's at Fashion Week or something in Paris right now, and is probably refreshing Twitter on the catwalk or something very uniquely Kyle Kuzma. But this is interesting. Ryan asked in the chat, did Deni want out or something? I wondered if maybe he thinks he's ready to be a win now piece, and showed that last year, and maybe they're doing him a solid again too, somewhere like Portland that thinks they're a little closer to contention, but he could still have a big role. But not that anything I'd heard, at least.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything, but it's not uncommon for players to. It's not that necessarily that they want out. It's that it's more like they say, look, if you could find someplace else for me, I wouldn't mind that, because I'm not happy with whatever it is that's going on here.
Right.
Sort of to be honest, like the Giddey trade. Giddey didn't go in and demand a trade. He just said,
didn't want to come off the bench.
If you're going to bring me off the bench, I'd rather you trade me. And, Oklahoma City went and did it. So that's kind of thing where I could see Avdija doing that, coming in and saying,
right,
look, if I'm not really what you think you want at forward, then go ahead and trade me. So they did.
According to Zahn, Corey is on the trade market officially, as reported by ESPN and Bleacher Report. So, wow, that we're clearing the house here at this point. Honestly, it makes sense. Like, if you're trading Deni, Corey is not in your timeline here either. And if you can get another first round pick for him, hey, do it.
Yeah, Corey, I would certainly be looking to trade him. I mean, one, he's a little older. He's 25, 26-ish. Right. I think he's entering his age 25 next season, 26 next season. Mm-hmm. And he's a good shooter. He added some closeouts and some dimension to his game offensive game last year. His defense is still pretty bad.
Yep.
And so I wouldn't be heartbroken to see him go. I like him. I like a lot of these guys, but still, they're trying to build something 5 years from now.
Right. He's a piece to me that makes more sense on the Bucks or somebody right now, providing spacing for an established team like Giannis that can cover up the defense.
He'd actually fit in pretty well defensively with the Bucks now too.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point. Yeah. The old Bucks would have made a little more sense where they could cover up for him. Dame is not covering up for anybody realistically, unfortunately. I am frantically trying to get the draft on here in the background, but my initial reaction to this is just to be underwhelmed. I don't love it. So I don't know.
It's probably that our general it means it's probably a fair deal, but
right.
So Ricochet goes number 1 to the Atlanta Hawks.
All right. What do we think? Betting odds, Alex Sarr is the heavy favorite, I would imagine.
Yes, I would say so. I think Sarr is likely to be the best player in this draft. And so I think that's who the Wizards end up taking.
I don't see superstar potential for him, to be very honest. But I think the odds of him being just a very good starter for a long time are pretty darn high. And I think that's a valuable archetype. We've talked about him a bunch on the pod here over the last couple of weeks. It's just, that big guy that covers a lot of ground, can be switchable, but also still a real rim protector. Probably starts out as a 4 early in his career. And if that's the way they're going, maybe that's another reason that if they think Deni's best at the 4 and Sarr has to be a 4 early on, that's maybe why Kuzma and Deni are not long for DC potentially.
Yeah. Yeah, that could be. I think Sarr, he reminds me, just in the way that he moves, he reminds me a little bit of Evan Mobley. And he showed up as one of the stat comps as well in Yoda. Yoda's my, for those who don't know, is my stat-based draft analysis tool. And it's short for Ye Old Draft Analyzer, which was what I called it jokingly on the message board where I was building this thing and somebody truncated it. And it stuck. I was like, oh, I didn't even realize that was there. So that's cool. I like Sarr. I think Sarr would make a good player, and whether he's going to be a superstar or not, I think he's, like I said, likely to be the best player from this draft. So I think you go ahead and pick him up.
Yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with that at this point. Shout out to the rest of Wiz Twitter in person at a bar in Adams Morgan right now that Troy Halliburton put together. Nice. You're checking in on your phone every once in a while. Hope you all are having fun. For those of you who aren't out in person, thanks so much for joining Kevin and I. We appreciate that. Again, I'll put it here in the chat, but there is a fundraising component to this too. The MS Society to Fight Multiple Sclerosis. It affects Wizards radio broadcaster Dave Johnson. He does a great job raising money for them, and several other members of Wiz Twitter who probably don't want me putting their business out there, but it's a big deal. It's a terrible disease. And if we can do a little good with our community here, we're obviously going to try to do that. So, hey, appreciate all you guys contributing to that. The link is here in the chat right now. So we had a $2,000 goal. We're at about $1,640 right now. So I think well on our way here. So I appreciate everybody, checking in and participating in that. Also, it'll be in the link to the live stream on Twitter as well. So if you need to find that link there, let me know, or I can DM it to you or whatever's most helpful for folks to get to that. All right, Kevin. So if it's not Alex Sarr, Who were the Wizards taking here? Who's next up, do you think, on their board? Not who you would take. I won't ask you that next, but who do you think is their next, potential guy on their board?
That's an interesting question because I would say based on their history, it would probably be somebody long, springy, athletic. So if they were to not pick Alex Sarr, who I think is kind of the prototype of who they would pick, my guess is it would probably come down to something like maybe Stephon Castle, who's just a big, rugged, pretty good athlete, or potentially Ron Holland, who is just like a long wing, had some skills, shot 26% from three, but I think with his overall size, length, general profile of athleticism, that he kind of fits what they would be looking for.
I got a list of the guys they worked out. So just kind of the next couple guys on the board. You mentioned Castle, Modest Bazelis worked out here as well. Donovan Clingan worked out here as well. Cody Williams worked out here. Those are probably the next kind of guys in that available tier of players, I would think. But I just can't see them passing on Sarr right now. It just seems like the long athletic guy that this kind of front office seems to like, but we don't really know what their guys are. Like a Tommy Shepard guy was not the same as an Ernie Grunfeld guy. So just because Tommy came from Ernie, never know. But it sounds like I'm trying not to follow along with Shams and Woj because it's just not this cool as seeing somebody walk up onto the stage and announce the guy here. But it seems like the cat is out of the bag. Alexander Sarr is now a Wizard, in a surprise to probably nobody. But he would have been your guy anyway, and Reed Shepard would have been next up, Kevin, I'm assuming?
I believe, yes, exactly. I have Sarr, I actually was the top-rated player in the class, and then Shepard was the second player. I think we discussed this previously. I do not have Ricochet rated very highly at all. I have him with essentially a second round grade, like a borderline. He's close to a first round grade. So if somebody told me that they had him as the 20th best player in the draft or the 15th best player in the draft, I would be like, okay. But I don't see him
number one overall. Yeah.
Number one overall. This is not with him. It's not a case. Usually it's the case where Yoda and like the consensus has a mismatch where you'll have a guy who has great tools and has a bad season or shoots the ball poorly for 2 months and then he comes around but his overall production isn't very good. That kind of thing. Like Jaylen Brown, for example, was not very productive in college, but had great tools. Yoda didn't like him very much, but that's not the case with Ricochet. So it'll be interesting to see. He just reminds me a little more of a guy like Adam Morrison, who put up big scoring numbers, but not other things, because he actually rated very poorly. Morrison did in Yoda. So
I could see that,
but without the overwhelming tools.
Do you have the Sarr comps handy for who you kind of projected or who he reminded you of? I think that would be an interesting data point for folks too. It's a pretty good list of names, and of the guys you basically posted this about on Bolts Forever, he was probably the one where I liked the comps the most. So friendly comps is always a good thing if the Wizards are going to draft somebody.
Yeah, let me pull it up here. It's actually going to be quicker for me to pull up the article, I think.
Okay. So I don't know. Let us know in the chat, folks. It's Alex Sarr. I mean, the pick is now officially in. We're seeing, the Wizards watch party at Capital One Arena is on the screen now. So shout out to anybody who's dialed in from their phone watching that. But Sarr with the fresh suit, it matches the draft hat. Like, I'm feeling it. A good suit is it's a good starting point.
I need to. Oh yeah, that's sharp. I don't think I could wear that, but
same. That's a sign that it's an actual good suit. If I couldn't pull it off, but started playing basketball at age 4. All right, I like that. It's a lifer. I weirdly loved his older brother Olivier Sarr when he was a college player. He wasn't as great once he transferred to Kentucky, but that's a dude I had a lot of stock on, like figuring it out in the NBA. And he spent parts of this year with the Oklahoma City Thunder. So I don't know. The Wizards could need another big. So maybe we see Olivier Sarr make his way onto the fringes of the Wizards roster here as well. I think this is probably the most popular first round pick the Wizards have made in terms of the overall fan base in a very long time here. Like, I'm super pleased with it. I don't know. I haven't seen any haters yet.
I've got the comps, and so number one, the closest guy was Wendell Carter Jr.
Okay,
and that was the number one comp.
Sure.
Number two was Jaren Jackson Jr., Defensive Player of the Year last year. Evan Mobley was the next. He was first team All NBA, All Defense his second season, and then we've got DeAndre Ayton, who has been productive, although maybe not as good as I think a lot of people thought he could be. And then the last one is kind of weird, just because of how bad defensively he's been, but it's Karl-Anthony Towns.
Okay, and, some stretch
Towns
potential there.
Number one pick overall. I mean, you've got, let's see, two number one overall picks. Jaren Jackson was, I think, fourth or fifth, and Mobley was second or third.
Yeah, Mobley was second. Yeah,
and then Carter was the lowest picked of them all. He was the seventh overall pick. So, Sarr looks like he should be pretty good.
Yeah, he checks the boxes. He looks the part. I mean, worst case scenario, if he's a rim running, mobile shot blocker who can cover some ground defensively, hit a couple spot threes here and there as his career evolves, and show some decent touch around the basket, like that's still a winning player that every team could use going into the playoffs right now. Like you just saw, if worst case scenario, he's a slightly better version of the guys that Dallas just used to get all the way to the NBA Finals in their front court, like I'm not mad at it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think he profiles, at least, the hope is that there are aspects of his game that he's has more dimension to his offensive game than those guys that Dallas just used to get those.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's like genuinely worst case. Yeah, Gafford defensively, as like a rim runner, like lob catcher type, and then even some of the short roll passing that Derek Lively did for Dallas this year. Like I think Sarr can do all those kind of things. If he adds more to that, now we're talking like, we're starting to get into that more special territory. And I would say the outline of those skill sets are there enough to project that he'll at least build some of them. So, but if all those things pop, okay, shit, now we're talking like a special dude.
Yeah. So what are they putting in the water in France, or the food, or the wine, or whatever, the cheese?
They're doing this hilarious thing over there where from a young age, they're like, here, let us teach you how to play basketball. It's like an amazing idea. Rather than roll a ball out and let people run up and down the court a bunch, and then in their off time, dribble between cones that can't try to steal the ball from them, they teach them fundamentals. They practice. They work during the week, and then they play their one game a week and put those things into effect, rather than just, I'm so tired from playing 7 AAU games over a weekend that even when I go to my training session to dribble between cones while I catch a tennis ball, I'm not really learning serviceable skills. And not that there isn't a place for some of those things, but they seem to have a much better balance than most people do over here. And it's paying dividends in the way that, they're producing like top, level products like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, those are some heck of players that have been coming out the last few years. So.
They understand how to play. They prioritize defense. I think that's another thing there too for these young guys. If you want to get on the court on a professional team at any level, if you don't guard people, they're going to laugh in your face and send your ass right back to the bench. I mean, not that all of them are going to be elite defenders, but of these young French guys who weren't at least serviceable at a very young age, and if you can guard other adult men, you can do a lot of things pretty well here. And the other thing that like you hear NBA coaches say is that if you want to know what NBA teams are running, you watch an NBA game. If you want to know what NBA teams will be running in 5 years, you go watch an international game. Yeah. So they're guarding really high level stuff from a young age. So they're well suited to come here and actually like understand the game well enough to defend people. And then I think it translates back on the offensive end too. Like I think you've talked about this before. If guys have good markers for steals and blocks and things like that, it usually shows up on the offensive side of the court too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, it's the steals, blocks is usually a sign of athleticism.
IQ. Oh, that too. Yeah.
Athleticism and IQ, oftentimes long arms, although the guy who just got picked in Houston, Reed Shepherd, steals and blocks were not. I mean, it's freaky to think. I was going back. I looked this up because somebody was talking about how Shepherd was short-armed and not athletic enough and wouldn't be able to play in the NBA. And at Kentucky in his freshman year, Shepherd blocked 4 more shots than John Wall did as a freshman at Kentucky in 4 fewer games.
Yep.
And it's like, oh. He also was second. Shepard was second is second on Kentucky's single season steals list behind Rajon Rondo.
Yeah, that guy ended up being pretty good on defense, from what I remember.
Yeah, he was good for a few years anyway. And, better than Wall again. He had more steals than Wall did, which is, and Wall for a couple of years. I mean, he made an all defense, I think, 1 year. So
yeah, he's the most recent member of an all defense team. I think he was a second teamer, if I remember right, but still an all defense team. So we'll take that.
Yeah, before all the injuries came in. I mean, Wall was a hell of a player on both ends. So
before the contract and all that kind of other stuff too, didn't help. I got to shout out the most important person for me, who is the person who also was the first one I saw that let me know about the Deni Avdija trade. As my wife, she wants a shout out here. So happy wife, happy life. Thank you, Absolutely. Kim, for letting me know that Deni got traded. And you can now tell all the listeners how sad I was genuinely about that, so people can stop hating on me for that shit.
Bring her on if you need her to testify.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We can have her swear on a Soul Wizards hashtag.
That's what you need. Okay, so Reed Shepard to the Rockets was sort of like the most telegraphed pick of the entire draft. I mean, I think that's all anyone had talked about all week was like this was this no-brainer fit. And, they delivered. I think there's always a couple of those every draft where like every single person knows that it was going to happen. And pretty much everybody out there was like, all right, Reed Shepard to Rockets. It makes too much sense not to happen.
Yeah, I love the pick for the Rockets, assuming he stays there. It just seems like he would be such a nice fit in there with Van Vliet. And, I forget that kid's name. The really athletic kid. Is it Jalen Green?
Yeah, something like that. No, which really athletic kid? Amin Thompson, Cam Whitmore. They've got a couple of those guys. Tari Eason, maybe not Şengün, but that's okay. Not everybody needs to be a top 1% athlete. He gets it done with IQ and things like that. So it works out. All right.
Well, speaking of athletic guys, just real quick, while I was waiting for the draft to start, I ran like a really quick mock draft on ESPN's mock draft simulator thing.
Okay.
And with the 14th pick, I was able to pick Devin Carter, which shocked me. I was very excited. I couldn't believe it when I thought that I was using the thing wrong because I figured he would go much higher. I have him 5th overall.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, hey, sign me up for that. Get her done at 14. I would expect he probably goes a little higher than that on draft night. Also,
same. I think he could go pretty high.
Just another shameless plug here in the chat for things. If you are a Wizards fan and you need some good Wizards merch, we have our Believe in Wizards Washington Weezars shirt with the Eiffel Tower replacing the Washington Monument. So if you want to go out and represent French fandom here in the Wizards fan base, we got you covered. And the link to that is in the chat. And it's also in the tweet from this particular live stream episode on Twitter or X or whatever you're calling it. If you are watching this live in person, if you can do me one favor right now, you can click that little like button for us on YouTube. We very much appreciate that. If you're watching on Twitter and if you could click the YouTube live stream and click that like button for us, we appreciate that too. If you're not already subscribed, obviously we'd love to have you do that. And you can hit notifications and the little episode icon will, give you a little buzzer every time one of these is going live. So you'll always catch us and can join in the live chat here. We'll definitely take some more questions and stuff as we get going here. Kind of the next one up here is, does Stephon Castle go next at 4 to the Spurs? I could see that, and I think that's a very good defensive core next to Victor Wembanyama.
Yeah, I agree. And you may recall when we did our mock draft with Oz, I picked in this exact spot. I picked Stephon Castle for the Spurs, and I think that would be a great pick for them, especially if they can teach him to shoot.
I trust them to do it. They had Chip England there for a long time. He's obviously moved on and is in, I think, Oklahoma City now, but they understand the value of like skill development, maybe more than any organization. So if anybody can take a guy like that and clean up the jumper, I think they're probably the one to do it. And for me, like, it's still not like a broken jumper. I was listening to Adam Finkelstein that does high school recruiting coverage for 247 say he saw Castle in a high school or at a Peach Jam game go 0 for 8 from the free throw line. And he just looked so mental and hitchy about it. He's already come a long way in such a short amount of time. So hopefully that's a big strides and a sign of things to come as confidence and the new form gets repped out and stuff like that too.
I'm sorry. I'm distracted, highly distracted right now by the Spurs and their really kind of like totally generic, cheap boardroom furniture.
Yeah, that wasn't their best stuff here.
Don't you have a better spot?
All right, we're going to bring in a special guest here real quick. I got my guy Jihadi White coming on. Jihadi, what is up, man? How are you?
What's going on?
What did you think? Loving the pick?
I love the pick. I think it's the best pick in the draft. You know, I think we got the best option in the draft we can. Very versatile player. I mean, very tall. We got an alien. We needed rim protection. We got exactly that. We have a guy who has crazy potential, crazy upside. You know, can score. Very active, very athletic for his size. You know, at 7'1", you know, you don't get that much athleticism usually, but you have the athleticism of a gazelle with him right now. And you know, he could be a shot maker. He's not a shooter yet, but I like that he has probably the most upside of anyone in the draft right now.
I love that. Jihad, you're on with my guy Kevin Broom. Kevin said the same thing here just 2 minutes ago. So great minds think alike here.
Yeah, Kevin was like, you know, we on one accord.
Love it.
Yeah. No, I love the pick. I agree with you. I think he's going to be the best player in the draft. And the guy who reminds me of most is Evan Mobley. And I think that it's a good pick.
Right. I mean, and what's good too is you're not expecting him to go out there and be a superstar right away. He's you're going to be able to use his motor and his athletic abilities to really utilize him for what he can do. He'll be more like a Lively coming out, you know, you in that type of situation, but a little more versatility. But in the end, you know, he could end up being a top guy in the league. You know, a guy that really would represent us as far as one of the, you know, a top athlete in the league.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
Jihadi, for you, how long do you feel like it took you to like really feel comfortable on the court? Like everybody talks about the center is the last line of defense and it's kind of the hardest defensive position. Like when did you feel locked in? I've heard other guys say like for centers, like year 3 or 4 is when they really kind of like hit their stride in terms of like seeing and feeling the game and being able to like quarterback the defense.
It was definitely the 3rd year.
Okay.
Well, when what happens in the league is first you get in there and you learn that you can play, right?
Yep.
You get a dunk or two and say, okay, I could dunk on anybody, right? But
build some confidence.
Yeah, but it's that about that 3rd year where you can pretty much relax as far as, okay, I don't have to worry about being here. Now I can play my game. Understand the league is actually much more freedom than college. It's more open than college. And you know, now it's about honing your skills. But as far as knowing that you belong and knowing that what you came with is already good enough to be competitive, then once you understand that, you can play.
How about physically? Like, I mean, it's a little more physical league when you played than it is now, but like, when did you feel like you could kind of handle the rough and tumble of like other big post players and stuff like that? I mean, you were a little older than he is, but same kind of idea.
Well, I never really was concerned about physical. I mean, it was some physical players in the league that that was unexpectedly physical, and so it wasn't the physical part that you would have to worry about, or maybe he would have to worry about. He needs to put some size on, you know, put some muscle on a little bit. It's the intangibles to understand how to use your physicality that you have to, because you have to control the physicality in a way where it's useful, right? Because certain physicality can get you thrown out, can get you, you know. So now you're saying, okay, wow, this guy just pinned me down on my shoulder, on my hip with his forearm, and I couldn't move, right? Like, that's the type of physicality. So it's a different level of strategy and using your physicality that you have to start to learn and then take from and okay, wow, maybe it wasn't that this guy was stronger than me. It was he used his physicality better than I did.
Sure. I guess just part of that, when you said that, I was thinking about Deni was for the first year or two. Like he was a little over aggressive defensively and things like that, but he learned. So it's a natural segue, I think, into what did you think of the Deni Avdija trade?
I'm trying to understand it at this point. I really dislike it. I understand you got another first round pick, and you have a player that's, you know, I don't like that we getting aged. We had a young player with a lot of upside. Mm-hmm. You know, yeah, we got a first round pick, another first round pick, but you know, with a player that's 31 years old, you know, he's past his prime to me in the NBA at the 31.
Yeah, I would imagine Brogdon's not long for the team. At least I hope not. And that probably, if he is, it means Tyus is probably out, I would think.
Yeah, so I'm really trying to understand the strategy here. And Deni's just a tough player to lose, especially now that you have a player who can protect the basket, who's just as versatile, that will really, I would think they will work very well together.
Yep.
And so it's tough to know that, okay, wow. When you think of Sarr, you're thinking, wow, Deni and Sarr. You can't tell me the Wizards fans wasn't thinking, oh, okay, now we got Deni and Sarr, have Poole, right? Now let's kind of just figure everything else out. So now he's like, well, wow, now we have to start all over again. So I'm still trying to figure it out. It may be a strategy there. I just haven't figured out which direction they're going.
And Koulibaly to that mix too. You could have gone 3, 4, 5 with them. That's a pretty tough defensive front court, I think.
Yeah. I'm perplexed. I'm perplexed with that one.
Kevin, any thoughts? Going to make sense of that one for us at all?
I don't really have a whole. So a few thoughts. One is that they're just going to trade Brogdon and probably Jones too, and probably Kuzma and you know, as many people as they can, because what they're looking for is picks. But if you're looking at why they might have actually like said, okay, we'll take Brogdon, is that Brogdon is supposed to be like an excellent locker room guy, a veteran leader, that kind of stuff. And so perhaps that's why they wanted that kind of a maturity and presence in the locker room on the team. I don't know, but he's only signed for one more year. So, you know, he's an expiring deal. Maybe they get a little more for him on that basis. I'm not sure. Maybe they can get 2 seconds for him. But I don't think they were looking for Brogdon in this deal. I think it was to make the deal, you know, the money work. And really what they got is 2 firsts and 2 seconds. And they thought that was okay for Avdija. You know, I like Avdija. I think he's a solid player, but I don't. It's not catastrophic to trade him.
You better watch out. These fans on here.
That's right. Yeah,
I know.
It's the one thing I won't miss is the.
I've been marched on by the Deni fans. So.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't agree with the trade right now personally, but you know, I'm not the GM.
I would have liked a little bit more.
Hey, it looks like Detroit picked Ron Holland.
Ron Holland at number 5. That's a shocker for a team that needed shooting. Jihadi, what do you think of the 14th pick? What do they do with it here?
With this type of trade, I mean, with this draft, you really don't know. I mean, what type of player do you get? I think you get a good 3. I mean, you got to replace what you gave away that you now can build again. You know, so I would think you would have to get a scoring 3, somebody who can light it up. You know, but also somebody who can defend. But to me, you go look for the best 3 in the draft at that spot.
Especially with someone like Holland going 5, which is maybe a little ahead of where people expected. Somebody's probably going to fall. So I think at 14, you probably still get a pretty good player.
Well, yeah. I mean, you got to think about it. I feel like this is one of those drafts. He's one of those unique drafts where those players that's going to be in between that 13 and 25 13 or 20, wherever, may end up being the best players that come out of it.
Yep. Yeah, I think you're right. That's the Giannis draft comes to mind there.
Yep,
And
exactly.
Sort of thing. Kevin, any thoughts on direction you would go with the 14th pick, or just still best available kind of no matter what?
I think they need everything. Just take the best player, whoever the best player is. It doesn't really matter the position. This roster is in such flux, and they literally need everything. That and just pick the guy. It's a real luxury to be able to just not even have to think about it. Just the best guy. I think I mentioned. I mean, I'm still hoping Devin Carter falls. That would be cool.
I like that.
I don't think he's going to fall that far though.
Jahadi, did you play against Anthony Carter? Was he in the league around the same time as you?
I'm on the podcast, man. What's up? Say it again.
Did you play in the league against Anthony Carter?
Anthony Carter? I don't think so.
I couldn't remember who overlapped with who, but that's Devin Carter from Providence's dad, and I think he was.
I didn't. Not on the team, at least.
Yeah. All right, partner. I know you're out and you're doing things here. So, any other thoughts you want to leave Wizards fans with here? Just overall take on the second pick so far and where they're going.
Keep the hope alive. Keep the hope alive. We got one thing I do know. We have a good front office that it's a lot of good heads, and they're really working together. So we just got to kind of figure out where they're going, but they have a mission. They have an end goal.
I love it. All right. Well, if you want to hop back on later, you're always welcome to do it. But I want to keep you from your night here. But thank you for hopping on, and hopefully fans appreciated the words of wisdom from the only former player on the panel here.
Hey, y'all enjoy.
All right, man. Have fun.
All right.
All right, Wizards fans, you appreciate that as much as I did, hopefully, because like I said, Jihadi had stuff going on tonight, so happy to have him pop in here a little bit here and give us a little color commentary. So always good stuff.
So, real quick, not to correct Jihadi in front of himself, but he actually played against Anthony Carter, or their teams played against each other 12 times over the course of his NBA career. And
clearly made an impression.
Carter's team was 9-3. I would say that it would be fair to say that neither of them played a whole lot. Jihadi averaged 5.9 points, 5.8 rebounds, shot 51%, and Anthony Carter 4.8 points and 3.8 assists. So they didn't exactly go up against each other. They weren't like matched up with each other. Both of them had negative box plus minuses. So, in their head-to-head matchups with each other. So, yeah.
If someone was 9-3 against me, I would block that shit out too. I got to be honest. And hopefully for Wizards fans' sake,
appears to be when Carter was with Miami and Jihadi was with Washington. So
that's a tough ask. Yeah, I think somebody had the better of the matchup there in terms of teammates. So Jihadi was probably busy dealing with Alonzo Mourning at the time. It's a little tougher.
Seriously.
If you're Wizards fans, if you do end up with a Devin Carter, you obviously hope he turns out slightly better than Pops. But we'll see how it goes.
He's a better athlete than Pops.
Yeah, for sure. All right, just kind of checking back in on the draft here. Kevin, anybody best available on your board here that's standing out or anything like that?
Oh boy, best available. I mean, we've got Donovan Clingan is there, obviously. And let's see, who else? Devin Carter, Nikola Topic is still out there. Rob Dillingham. I think these are all guys that would probably be likely to go in the next few picks. Yeah,
I'm pretty curious here to see where Charlotte goes. I guess the pick is technically in, and I'm sure Shams or Woj or somebody has raced the other to tweet it out. So we'll see here in a second. But Buzelis sort of stood out to me as a guy that seems like somebody they would kind of like. But
I had Buzelis rated a little lower, but I could see him going up this side, based on what the consensus is of him. He's fifth in the mock draft. So,
right. Yeah, that's probably the next guy on the old overall consensus best available. I haven't looked to see where at all if Jay Billis has him, but I would imagine he's got him as a pretty high name up there as well.
How high did you end up with Buzelis?
I kind of came around to it as somebody I could see our front office liking in general. And I think the opinion of him seems to be really colored from people based on whether they saw him play high school basketball or not. Like Jihadi mentioned going up against him, his teams he was on in the AAU circuit, and said he was like this big playmaker, who was pushing the ball in transition. And the name I heard from a couple different people was like high school, like he played like Lamar Odom in high school, like this big wing point guard almost. To me, that's much more intriguing than we saw with the guy, in the G League Ignite that just sort of looked like lost on what to do most of the time. He wasn't good defensively. He didn't really shoot it. He somehow got a rep from some people as a shooter. He had one good year of above average shooting in high school, and that's really the only sample size of him making any perimeter shots. So that's probably another big swing skill for him. This is a guy like, he tested pretty well athletically, I'd say, but you didn't see it as much on the court. And like I said, I thought he was bad defensively. Also, a lot of his teams he was on have underachieved. Like the Ignite, obviously not all his fault, but they were awful last year. And so were kind of his high school teams based on their overall like historical reputation. So that makes me a little nervous too. Like winning is a data point, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's a little tough with being a team game. Although the high school thing is a little concerning because, like you say, you understand like a team that starts losing at the highest levels, when they're getting it there. But high school is a level where you can have a great player who can just carry a team. They can score virtually every possession down the floor, and it's really hard. When you are going up against teams that have like a 6'3" center or a 6'4" center, it's hard for them to really scheme and come up with things because the athletes you're going up against are so much more limited. So high school losing in high school is concern.
Yeah, exactly. Like the Ignite, I mean, they weren't going to win a ton of games anyway. Being historically bad for a G League team was a little worrying to me too. But
another French guy.
The next pick is in. The future is French. 3 of the top 6 picks in the NBA draft are French. TJ Saloon, 9 points per game. You see there on the screen, 4 rebounds per game, 1.2 steals for Cholet. The thing I've kind of liked about him is just like the attitude. The vibes are good here. I mentioned this on a previous pod. His sister is a professional player in France, and she kind of like, pushed this like tough attitude on him, and it's kind of taken on, and he's got an edge, and he'll dunk on somebody and mean mug them. I love shit like that. I'm a sucker for it. So this is a guy I like. I think I tweeted in like November he would be a top 8 pick or top 7 pick or something like that. So just consider this my crystal ball emoji that everybody loves to tweet out. So we'll see if he can kind of put all the pieces together and turn into the player that maybe some of the potential points to. I know this is another guy that you were lower on. He didn't have a particularly good season statistically here. Just overall thoughts on Saloon.
Yeah, so this is the thing where maybe I could see this is the kind of guy that I think Yoda could miss on because he's supposed to be physically have good physical ability, good attitude, good gifts and skills, but he had a bad year. Or a not very productive year, to be honest. The way I would look at it anyway. We're talking 50% on 2s, 32% on 3s, at a pretty good volume of 3s too. So he didn't shoot it all that well. And he didn't rebound all that well. And he's not a playmaker. And he did get some steals, but he doesn't block shots. So, more turnovers than assists, fouled a lot. So, maybe though with the athleticism is what is the thing that ultimately carries him, and he's got the physical tools, and the Charlotte system is able to help him. So,
that's what they're going to need. I think a play finisher, play next to LaMelo Ball, was somebody that they were kind of looking for, and can he be Miles Bridges plus maybe some more shooting down the road? Maybe that's kind of the guy they're looking for here. And they've got a point guard in Ball and Mark Williams.
Is he more of a 4 than a 5, or could he play 5 too?
I think that's maybe like the ultimate unlocking of his long-term potential here is, let's see where, Yeah, that's what you got to hope, is that he can play a little bit of both. Otherwise, if he's just really a 4, I think that locked positional versatility hurts your ceiling a little bit here. But if he could be a stretch 5, that's interesting to me. He's like genuinely like around 6'10". He plays like a 5 a lot of the time, like a stretch 5 potential. He'd be like a small ball death lineup 5. I don't think you'd want him, guarding the biggest 5s in the league here, but that would be interesting.
Yeah, but I mean, if he's like a legit 6'10", I mean, that's Daniel Gafford height.
So, yeah, exactly.
And I don't know what his wingspan is, but if it's similar, Gafford has those go-go gadget arms.
Right. Yeah, I think they listed him as 6'10" with shoes, so give or take a little bit there. Maybe I guess he was 6'8" and 3/4 at the combine, which is kind of right on that fringe size. Maybe
that's
a
about
little
the size I think Robert Williams was. So
yeah, exactly. I don't know if he's got quite those sort of elite physical tools and stuff like that too.
Right. Yeah.
All right. So Portland is in here at 7 with now their only lottery pick of the night. Any predictions or thoughts on what they go with here based on who fits next to Deni?
So yeah, one of the craziest rumors I heard pre-draft was that they were going to take Zach Edey in this spot. So that would be very interesting if they actually pulled the trigger on it. I don't know. I mean, I think when I was drafting for Portland in our mock, I took Topic, which I think would be an interesting pick for them. But, I would imagine they won't be picking for need necessarily, but I could see them going for Klingon.
Donovan Klingon, the pick is in.
Oh, it is Klingon.
It is Klingon. So they now have the center rotation of Donovan Klingon, DeAndre Ayton, and Robert Williams. I hope they play all 3 of them together at some point during the year.
That would be fun. Yeah,
I love weird shit like that.
Yeah, that would be fun. Sort of like when Denver ran that 5 center lineup.
Yeah, right. Just throw them all out there, baby. That's interesting. I think he makes a lot of sense. Like Shaedon Sharpe hasn't been much of a defender here yet. Scoot Henderson, not much of a defender yet, but Sharpe's got the physical tools. I think Henderson's physically built well enough to guard some guards, and Deni obviously plays good defense. So hopefully they can kind of use the big fella here to start to revamp their overall kind of defensive identity is probably what they're looking for here.
I mean, it's some elite shopping. You got a tux in his size.
Yeah, right to go. That was a custom joint. I can guarantee that one. That's
did you like which rental shop did he go to for that one?
Yeah, exactly. That's a Men's Warehouse. They put 3 suits together to patchwork that for him.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Well, this taking some guys off the board here, but nobody too surprising. He was 5 on the consensus mock draft, so him lasting to 7, not really crazy. Just next couple guys in order on this rookie scale consensus mock draft are Modest Buzelis, Dalton Connect, Cody Williams, Rob Dillingham, and Nikola Topic. So one of those names is likely to be available for the Wizards at number 14, potentially. Somebody will probably drop between now and then. So I think that's the chances of them getting somebody interesting here at 14 are pretty high, I think. Yeah,
it's looking that way. It'll be interesting to see who falls, because I like some of the guys who I think will be available more potentially in the second round. So, have pretty high scores on them. I'm not even going to say the name, so people can go look. But it would be it's just interesting. The guy I'll go ahead and talk about it just real quick. KJ Simpson is a guy who's expected to be a second round pick, and I haven't looked back to see, but I had Jalen Brunson in a similar kind of range where I had him. I think I've got KJ Simpson just outside of the top 10, 11th, 12th overall. And that's right around where I had Jalen Brunson the year he came out. And he ended up going second round. And obviously he's turned into a hell of a good pro. At some point, production matters more than size. So.
Yeah, he plays bigger. He's athletic. He shoots the shit out of it. Those are all good things. I think, if you can get him later in the draft, because he's not as high on everybody's radars, I would be definitely willing to move around here. I guess, do you think there's any world where we're packaging 14 and something to move up here a little bit to get someone specific, or do you expect them to kind of stand pat and make the pick at 14?
Hey, Will Dawkins will move around. I mean, they do make deals, so it wouldn't shock me to see them move up, especially if there's somebody they like. I mean, last year they gave up, an extra second to move up one spot so they could get Koulibaly.
Yep.
And so if there's somebody they like, they will move up to make sure they can get him. And I can see a few guys here that I think that they would like, especially with the, I hate to keep just repeating myself, but Devin Carter does fit the profile. He's a little older than I think that they would want, being 22, but best athlete in the draft, and kind of long armed, good size, can shoot, good, just overall production. Rebounded like crazy for his position. He rebounded like a forward. Really, he's a guard, so I could definitely see something like that. Seeing them make a move like that, and then depending on what else they're going to do. In terms of trading players, there are some other interesting players still on this board. I mean, this overall, I think, is a weaker draft than it has been in previous years, but
sure,
there are still good players available.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think they're going to get a dude. It's just which dude, and is it a dude we all like, is sort of the question. Their approval rating has got to be as high with a Wizards draft pick. I think I mentioned this earlier, of anybody I can remember, maybe since John Wall. Like, everybody I seem to remember really being hyped about the Wall pick. Yeah. But there were some haters for Bradley Beal because he didn't have like a crazy year at Florida. The Otto Porter pick was a divisive one. So this is kind of a Koulibaly, I guess, was pretty well received overall, but there's been some people that were kind of vocally anti-Koulibaly on Wizards Twitter. So, we could probably guess that this is the most liked of the groups here.
Seems likely, yeah.
All
I could also see them move it up for Topic. Anyway.
No, that's where I was just literally going to ask you here. We've got a couple questions in the chat. Lior asked if there was anyone specific you think they made this trade to kind of go out and get, or they were targeting at 14. And then along those same lines, Noel mentioned Topic at 14 would be great. Locked on Law said Edey will be a Wizard at 14. You like both guys more than I like both guys, I think. So if you had your druthers, both are on the board at 14. Which of the two would you take?
Between
Topic and Edey.
Topic. I would take Topic there. And it, not that it's like a slam dunk either way, but I just think Topic is a little more likely to be the kind of modern NBA player than the current NBA player than Edey is. With Edey, the question mark is just whether he can translate what he does to this NBA environment. Topic just kind of fits in, So that said, I would be willing to bet on Edey. Like, if we're down to, if we're at 14 and like Devin Carter, Topic, those guys are gone, and Edey's sitting there, I would be willing to take him, even at 14. Certainly at 26, if he drops that far, if he's sitting there, I think that would be kind of a no-brainer, really.
Locked on Law said in the chat, even the Wall pick was divisive. Some wanted the center from Kentucky, not the guard. That's DeMarcus Cousins. I don't really remember him being drafted and people being salty about that, but I may have selective memory 10 years or 10 plus years later.
There were probably a few. I think even in the draft, there were some issues with Cousins and his, his personality, I guess.
Yeah. Spurs take Rob Dillingham, another Kentucky guard. So perfect segue there. Very flashy, bedazzled suit. So more power to him. This is interesting to me. Like, can you play Dillingham and Castle together? Is that now your backcourt of the future? They probably actually fit pretty well skill set wise. I think that just probably means Castle needs to guard twos now, which I think he's big enough to do. So I don't hate it.
Yeah, that's an interesting move. And it's also, I mean, did the Spurs just make sure to tell everybody they're going to pick to wear black? Is that
exactly? They know what's up. This is the death row game already on draft night. So if you could do like the fusion dance here and put Steph Castle and Rob Dillingham together, that would be one hell of a player, I think. If you put that on ball skills of Dillingham with the defensive skills and the passing chops there of Castle, I would feel pretty darn good about that.
Yeah, I agree. And this will be a fascinating lineup to see when they roll out there with those two plus Wembanyama. I am looking very much forward to seeing Castle. defend on the perimeter with Wembanyama behind him. That should be fun. I mean, Castle, one of the top comps, just outside of, I think, the top that I reported, I think, was Drew Holiday. So it's obviously Holiday is one hell of a player. So I'm not saying that Castle will get there, but that's not an unrealistic
I don't hate that. Yeah.
Model.
So yeah, apparently Shams is saying Rob Dillingham likely on the move to Minnesota. I haven't seen any reporting on what that looks like there. Yeah, Yor has it in the chat as well. Man, all right, that was not a long-lasting thing, but I guess if you're the Spurs, maybe there's somebody win now-ish you could get off Minnesota. I don't really know what that trade would look like. That's a little strange to me.
Yeah, that is. I just wonder what that. Yeah, I've got to see the details on that. I'm refreshing like crazy here to try to find out.
Woj, Minnesota is taking Zach Edey at number 9. I was wrong there. I had a little intel earlier in the week that Memphis was going to go for Devin Carter, and more so than just his dad is on the coaching staff there. But yeah, they needed a big man, and they loved Steven Adams in the past, so they got another big, potentially rugged big man here. Edey ran the floor better than people give him credit for. I still don't know if he's the guy who most enables you to, run all over people with Ja Morant, but they know better than I do, and you and I have both liked most of their picks for the last couple of years here too. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt.
So wait, you did say the Grizzlies.
The Grizzlies are going to take Zach Edey. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like you say, presumably to be a backup at first, and then go from there.
Shout out Jimmy coming to us live from the actual draft, sitting at Barclays Center with another Wizards fan. So shout out other Wizards fan. We appreciate you guys kind of holding it down for us. Hopefully you cheered very loudly with Sarr, and you'll cheer very loudly for this 14th pick. So we look like we like the picks as a fan base. And shout out Kevin McLaughlin here. He's in Ireland in the middle of the night. Just woke up at 2 a.m. there. WTF is happening with Deni? We said the same thing, Kevin. So, I think that was Wizards fans' initial reaction was just, I was shocked. I'm coming around to it a little bit more because I love the draft. So taking another lottery pick is cool. But WTF was my actual first 3 letters out of my mouth here. So apparently good amount of Wizards fans at the draft. If you were ever going to go see a Wizards draft in person, doing that the year they have the number 2 pick is definitely the year to do that, I think.
Yeah, right.
I'm just updating my best available board here and crossing some names off the list as we go. That's the Edey one. That's a little high for me personally. I could see it outside the lottery, but yeah, that's something.
The thing with Edey is what is the controlling factor? Like, yes, he seems slower. His agility tested great at the combine. And when I say great, I mean he was about average for all players at the combine.
Right. Exactly.
Which is pretty impressive.
Huge and being average. That's good.
7'4" and 300 pounds,
Yep.
That's a movement. And then you hear things like, where his quote was something I heard the guy from ESPN, Jonathan Givony, talking about it. He said, Edey, some people like golf. I like hitting people. And
I'm not mad at that.
Yep. He's a physical dude, and he obviously crazy efficient, 2-time college player of the year. He just mashed people inside, and he played huge minutes at Purdue, which suggests he's very well conditioned for somebody his size. Yep. And so if you're, and the thing is when you're picking 9 or so, one of his top comps was DeMarcus Cousins in Yoda.
Sure.
And then, but in fairness, there are other guys who were also very productive in college, big guys who were very productive in college who did not make good NBA professionals. So that's certainly a possibility.
I made a joke on our mock draft about Donovan Clingan being the next UConn center, Hashim Thabit, version of big and slow. But that's one of those guys, right? Was the big defensive wall center that didn't translate. Edey is a much better mover than somebody like Thabit ever could have dreamed to be. And that's the thing. For being that big, he moves really well. He's a late bloomer to basketball. He has decent touch. He probably shoots it at some point in his career. I wouldn't bet on him being a perimeter spacer anytime in the near future. It's honestly just like a philosophy thing for me. He's a drop coverage center. I just wouldn't want to go that route with a lottery pick personally.
Yeah. I get that. I think I would be willing to take a shot on his ability, and it's interesting for Memphis to be the team to do that. You know, they're going to have Ja obviously, and some other guys who can play. Presumably, he won't start. Presumably they pick their backup center, at least at first. I think is the plan.
Yep. Shout out Mark watching from the Bay Area. Professor Chaos said, had to let the dogs out. What's going on with Deni? Did we trade him for a pick? Yes, we traded him for several picks. You were better off letting the dogs out. I guess this is a terrible dad joke, but I guess Will Dawkins let the dogs out. I don't know. It's just chaos, man. It's just crazy. I didn't expect this. I don't think anybody saw him being the guy traded on draft night. I thought he was probably one of two guys not potentially on the block on draft night, but the Wizards get the 14th pick out of it, a 2029 first round pick. And it sounds like 2 speculative second round picks at some, time to be named in the future or something like that.
Yeah, I agree. That's probably the thing that surprised me most is that they traded him. Not necessarily that they traded him at all. It's just that with how he played last year, which again was the best season of his career so far, and the combination of the relatively low priced salary that he was signed for. Yeah. I was a little surprised to see them being willing to part with him at 23 years old. Presumably they've traded away what are likely to be his 4 best years, and in exchange for some shots at 4 different guys. So it's 4 bets in exchange for 1 that they kind of know what they were going to get. I wouldn't expect like a big leap forward from Avdija from this point, but I would have expected just continued progress. So
yeah, I think so too. Cody Williams out of Colorado, younger brother of Jalen Williams, fan favorite of a certain amount of Wizards fans, is the pick at number 10 for the Utah Jazz. I kind of get where they're going. That was a position where they didn't have kind of an intriguing young guy, so not really surprised to see them take a wing. Kevin, I think if I remember correctly, you had Cody Williams lower on your board than consensus. Is that accurate?
Yes, that is much lower, although he did shoot well from 2 and really well from 3 as well. But we're talking 4 rebounds per 40 minutes and 2 assists. And this is one of those, and I mean, like almost nothing in terms of steals and blocks, especially for a guy who's supposed to be an athletic wing. He had, more turnovers than assists. So, and not many assists. So, it's just what this makes me think of is some of Danny Ainge's draft picks back when he was with Boston, where he would pick some guys and you're like, what?
It's the Jaylen Brown bet, right? Like just a physical profile and archetype. Maybe he turns into his brother over time. I think the thing to remember about Jalen Williams is he was a point guard that grew into a small forward, and Cody has basically always been a tall, skinny, small forward. So it's not like he has sort of that underlying infrastructure of point guard skills to fall back on. And I think that's what really makes Jalen the special player that he is. So,
there's no playmaking there. I mean, the bet on him is that he can shoot the ball and that he'll defend well enough to make up for everything else that he doesn't do.
I heard a couple of folks say that, Cody struggled because he was used as a point guard at times and put out of position in Colorado. I never saw that personally. I actually saw Tristan da Silva be asked to play make more of the 2 of them in that Colorado lineup. And, maybe some of that is the injury, but even if you go back and watch sort of his FIBA play, didn't really do much of that too. It just, you hope that he had some strength. He gets a little more tight with his handle on the ball, and the shooting translates at higher volume. And then you've got a pretty good archetype, 3-and-D plus player potentially. It's just, I don't think he has that skill set that makes Jalen sort of the special player that he is. But hey, maybe he can develop it over time. Maybe it's something in the DNA that he can grow into.
Yeah, I don't see anything in the numbers to suggest that he is like a potential point guard or that they asked him to play point guard. I mean, we're talking 2.2 assists per 40 minutes. That's and when I said more turnovers and assists, we're talking 2.8 per 40. It's not like a ton of assists. It's not like he's like 4 or 5 turnovers and 4 or 5 assists. This is pretty small numbers in each category. So
if you throw a ton of assists out there, but you also have a ton of turnovers, especially as a freshman, I'm like totally willing to ignore a lot of the turnovers, because like you were really trying to make plays for people and you were reasonably successful a lot of the time. So I'll ignore the dumb stuff because I think you can rein that in. Yeah. When you have a bad assist to turnover ratio and they're both just low, it's sort of like, a little less.
Yeah, that's the thing. You want to see guys trying to make plays. And so turnovers, you don't want them to make turnovers, but you can forgive some if they're making a ton of plays.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, this is interesting. So some comments in the chat. There's a couple of Devin Carter votes at 14. Nikola Topic. Lior makes a really good point that Topic probably doesn't play this year. So if you're the Wizards and you now need to out-tank Brooklyn, having another lottery pick that comes in that doesn't actually suit up for you at all this year might not be the worst thing in the world. He's basically a draft and stash. So
we got to talk about that Brooklyn trade too, because man, that's a ton to get for Mikal Bridges. I like Bridges, but 5 firsts, 4 unprotected. Wow.
I'm shocked. You should get 7 for Kyle Kuzma at this point. I'm just kidding. I would try to.
No, definitely. They should get 7.
Yeah. If I in a perfect world, that's what I would take too. All right, everybody, I need 2 things from you if you're watching this live. 1, click that little like button for us on YouTube. There are way more people watching this live than have clicked the like button for us. So help us blow this up for other Wizards fans. We want to get as many eyes on it as possible. After the 14th pick, we're going to run through all the donations and things like that and give people their proper shout outs and all that kind of stuff here. So who in the chat you like with that pick is the other thing I want to see from you. With the 14th pick, the Wizards should take ... Fill in the blank for us there. Kevin, a couple of comments in the chat here about, is there another trade on the way here? If you were a betting man, is there another trade for the Wizards to get back into the first round again in this draft? Or are they kind of done trading for 2024 first round picks?
I'd be a little surprised to see them trade into the first round again. I could see them moving up from 26. Right. Packaging up some of those future seconds to move up into the, get somebody's pick in the 20s or, very late teens. I could see something like that moving up from 26. But I'd be a little surprised if they made a move to acquire another first round pick. Unless it was like basically straight cash in seconds, something like that.
Yeah, I could see that too. If anything, I think maybe they'd be more aggressive moving the 26th pick around or something like that. Now that they have 14, do they still want 26? Could they trade that for a young player with some upside? Something like that seems more likely to me than trading Kuzma for the 8th pick or we're already past 8, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I still think that there's a pretty strong possibility that they end up trading Kuzma tonight and Corey and Tyus. Well, I don't think Tyus Jones, because he's not under contract, but I could see a sign and trade type of deal.
Supposedly the Timberwolves are trading a 2031 unprotected first round pick and a protected 2030 pick swap to the Spurs for Rob Dillingham. So they needed a little extra shot creation from the guard position. I think they want a longer term replacement for their core for Mike Conley. Conley, a great guy for somebody like Rob Dillingham to learn under. So that makes sense. By 2031, though, that unprotected pick from them could be kind of interesting. If they're not winning and somebody like Anthony Edwards has moved on by then, that might be a valuable pick. So I'll be interested to see.
Maybe they're betting that if by 2031, man, it's a long ways out.
Yeah.
And they'd be betting on Edwards and Dillingham to be carrying the team at that point, because the rest of their roster is going to be turned over by then.
Yeah, agreed. per Woj, I love the cryptic writing as always. The Bulls are focusing in on Chicago kid Modest Bazelis. Honestly, if you're the Bulls, like I have no idea what you're doing as an organization, but getting a guy that was top 5 on a lot of boards, at this point in the draft, I don't think is necessarily the worst thing in the world for them. And getting somebody that's got, some hometown buzz behind him, not much of a shock here either.
Yeah, so you don't know what the Bulls are doing. That just puts you in good company with the Chicago Bulls themselves. I have no idea what they think they're doing. I guess it's the same kind of thing.
I don't know that they know what they think they're doing
either. Did they hire like Ernie Grunfeld and Tommy Shepard as consultants? Because that's what it seems like.
Yeah. I do know as a few years ago, Ernie was still doing some consulting for people. So could be one of the teams they're out there for.
Yeah. Now, Bazelis, we've talked about him before already tonight, but for those who weren't listening, I think you're probably a little higher on him than I am. I had him like borderline second round, first round grade. Kind of player that I could definitely see Yoda missing on though, just because he did not have a good year. The Ignite was a dumpster fire, and that could have very much affected his productivity.
I think so. We've talked about this in past ones too. The Warriors have this kind of model of let's draft guys based on where they were valued in high school, because those people see them, in this true context where they can show off their best selves, and that's kind of the high end potential. So maybe that's sort of what the teams that take him are thinking is like, all right, best case scenario, he's a playmaking 6'9" 4 who can play some 5 if he bulks up, and some 3 if he stays quick enough. So that's the hope if you're taking him as a team. But I think there is a world where he doesn't fill out, the shooting doesn't come around, there isn't much playmaking there, and he's probably like a rotation piece, but not the guy I would have wanted to take at 5 or something like that. So I think it was a riskier pick than maybe some people seem to think. So taking a bite at him at like 12, I'm not mad at though at all from them.
No, I think that he's a little early for where I have him ranked, but perfectly defensible pick here, especially if you think last year was a dumpster fire. He's actually a better player. It was just a really bad situation that kind of hurt everybody on the Ignite. And so, and it really affected him. And, some of the other guys that I have, while I have them ranked higher, their actual score isn't that much higher. Probably the exceptions to that, the real exceptions to that are Devin Carter and Nikola Topic. So,
yeah, I think that makes so much sense. All right. Well, Wizards are getting close here. Oklahoma City is on the board at number 12, then Sacramento, and then it still says Portland, but that will be the Wizards pick, assuming this trade formally goes through. We'll see how it goes. I'll probably have another guest on here in a minute. Ersin Demir of the Demir NBA Substack will probably jump on here and give us some live reaction to the 14th pick. We'll just kind of keep bringing on friends of the show here throughout the night just to give us live reaction.
Great. Erson's great. I really loved the podcasts, the recordings that you did with him, and his content on the players you've never heard of and never will. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's like really valuable work. And I'll be shocked if some smart NBA team isn't like, hey, we could use you doing some international scouting for us and things like that too. So shout out to him. And if you want to know about the diamonds in the rough in these drafts, Ersin is your guy. So everybody check that out. The Demir NBA Substack. It's worth the price of admission here. And there's also a free version. So it's double worth that price too. So check that out. He'll come hop on here in a few minutes here with us, I think. All right, Kevin, best available. Who you got? Next 3 guys on your board.
Next 3 I've got on my board would be Devin Carter, Nikola Topic, and our Topic. Is it Topic or Topic?
I've heard literally both throughout the year, so your guess is as good as mine at this point.
So Topic, and then the next guy I've got is Deron Holmes from Dayton.
Okay. Deron Holmes at Dayton. Yeah, love him.
I'm a little higher on him than I think virtually everybody else is, but I swear I looked at him and I keep wondering, like, what is it? He was efficient. He shot well from 2 and 3, decently from the free throw line. He rebounded well, got some assists, blocked shots, didn't turn it over a ton. more assists than turnovers. I didn't foul and defends. What is there not to like here? I mean, he's not like necessarily an overwhelming athlete, but he's good enough. He was, tested decently at the combine. He wasn't deficient. So.
Yeah, I'm with you there. All right, let's bring on Ersin here. It's in the middle of the night for him, so I appreciate my guys.
Gentlemen, what's up?
Thank you, sir.
I don't know if you could hear me, but I was telling Matt, one, I love the podcast that you did with Matt, where you guys talk through the players.
Hey,
I love the content that you have, looking at these guys that I've never heard of before. So I really just wanted to say,
hey, I appreciate it,
man,
because that's all what I do, And nice to meet you as well. And hype for this draft, man. It's the day of the year, right? So you don't have to worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow will take care of itself. Plus, we have the second round tomorrow. So,
yeah.
The 4 p.m. Eastern time is bizarre to me why it's so early, but it's probably great for you in your time zone. You can actually be awake and check the whole thing out.
That's a relief. But right now, it's okay.
Just don't run it all. Just keep it the same day. I'd rather they start the first round at 4 p.m. Eastern and just run it all.
Yeah, maybe it's a TV thing. Prime time in the evening, right? So I understand it.
That's
to me,
exactly
this year was
is.
important because last 2 years I didn't make it until the 60th pick, so might as well have the first round this year, right? So,
yep. No, I think that's the move. All right, so let's see here, Ersin. Who's the top couple guys left on your board here? Who would you be taking? Who would you want to be still around for the Wizards?
Well, I have to check, man, because a lot of names are gone. And I think if I look at my list for the Wizards, I would address the point guard situation. And the thing, to me, it's easy to go for Topic here because I was expecting him to fall, just that we discussed on the podcast.
He just went to Oklahoma
Collier
City at
and
12,
Topic.
by the way.
Oh, he went to 12. Man,
he literally just came off. He just literally just came off the board
Collier,
right now.
Man.
Yeah,
I would go for Isaiah Collier, no doubt.
Okay, I like Collier. That would be interesting. A guard here wouldn't surprise me. I think there's a certain amount of Wizards fans that like Collier. Kevin and I both like Devin Carter a good amount. I like Collier too, but Carter's a guy I think makes some sense here as well. And then fan favorite from the Baltimore area, Carlton Bub Carrington, is another popular name amongst Wizards fans, probably in this range of the draft here too. So gonna be kind of interesting here. Ersin, any surprises for you so far in this draft?
The Spurs traded away Rob Dillingham, right? I didn't see that one coming because I was, dying on the hill of Dillingham going to San Antonio. And I was like, man, now I'm punching air, So, but for the Wolves, they get a huge relief for Anthony Edwards, of course. So I like that pick a lot for them, and trading away future picks to get a guy right now in their situation, it's a great thing. And to me, to be honest, I think Ricochet going at number 1. Yeah, I don't really see why the Hawks would need him, to be honest. If I were them, I would go for Klingon or maybe Sarr, even though they haven't worked him out. So I was a bit shocked at the number 1 pick, despite, it being in the air that he was going to be the pick. But to be honest, that one shocked me a lot. But the pick I like is Tijan Salon, man. They just swing for the fences, I love that pick.
I'm with you there too. I asked Wizards fans on Twitter here a couple minutes ago who their guy would be with the 14th pick, and Bub Carrington, another popular name here in the DC area. So I don't know. I kind of like going for a guard, honestly, just somebody you've got available minutes for, and you've got some wing pieces, potentially with Koulibaly, and I was going to say Deni, not Deni anymore, but Sarr's maybe a 4 early on in his career, 5 eventually. So having somebody that can make some plays with the ball with this group, I think makes a lot of sense at this point. Also, screw Oklahoma City, man. Taking Topic, like they can afford to wait. He's probably got some upside. He's basically their like super giddy replacement already. So just shrewd drafting by Sam Presti again.
Yeah. It helps when you have that many cracks at it.
Yeah, right. But hey, that's smart. That's probably what the Wizards were thinking, is just to give themselves as many swings at the bat as possible.
Yeah.
All right, 2 picks away. The Sacramento Kings are on the board here at 13. Any predictions here, guys?
I think they're going with Tyler Smith.
Wow. Okay. Kevin, also a big fan of Tyler Smith, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I do have him. What I have, 13th overall, I guess, somewhere in there.
Right at this exact pick in the draft.
Well, yeah. That would be great for the Wizards, I think, because then Devin Carter would be sitting for them at 14. And if you get Sarr and Carter, I mean, I like that because you've got a couple of guys who can defend. And Carter, like I said before, he rebounds like crazy for his position. There's some playmaking. There's defense.
Yeah, they just took Devin Carter.
Sacramento taking Devin Carter.
I kind of hope that there's like that deal with it. They do the Koulibaly deal where they trade.
Yeah, we're flipping down. Yeah,
and they're first to move up a spot.
Yep, agreed. I mentioned it already here, but if you haven't already, please check out Erson's Substack. If you haven't heard of any of these players so far in the draft, he's a guy who can get you up to speed on them. And then the undrafted free agency guide, I think, is really an interesting, valuable team here too, of teams that need to add talent later in the draft. You're as well equipped anybody to keep people kind of in the loop on who the names to know are. So I think everyone should go look at it, on Substack.
So who's the pick, guys?
Thanks, man.
Man.
So yeah, number 14 is the Wizards, right? So
I think the Wizards are going to take Dalton Connect out of Tennessee.
Yeah, he's still left on the board. That shocked me, to be honest.
I think only because I just think it would piss off Wizards fans the most of any of the remaining guys, even though he's falling down from consensus. So that just, I don't know. It seems like we can't have nice enough things or be all on the same page about every pick in this draft. So they got to do something here that shakes the zeitgeist up a little bit.
Yeah. The next guy I have here is Deron Holmes, but my prediction is I think Tyler Smith is the pick.
Woj said that the Kings had significant trade talks around number 13. So it's, to your point, not out of the realm of possibility that we could see an update after the fact here that they've made a move for somebody.
If the Kings keep Carter, assuming he's not moving to the Wizards, which I would love to see, but if it's not, I do think that Tyler Smith is probably their pick.
Okay.
Young, athletic, got some talent.
I'm going with my gut in, man. I'm going with Matt. I think with the sentiment of the hometown kid, with Carlton Carrington, I think that's makes too much sense in the context.
That's the thing, though. It makes too much sense. This organization historically has not wanted to draft any local guys, despite them all being really good. So I think that's interesting. Also, go ahead, Kim.
He didn't really pop for me in the numbers, but we'll see.
So Uptown Dre said that we have Kispert in Dalton, so go get a guard instead. I think Connect projects as like Kispert on steroids. He does way more self-creation than Kispert does, despite being kind of an older player here in the draft too. So if you're going to potentially move on from somebody like Kispert, you can kind of reset the clock on, a playmaker, a self playmaker, shooter, bucket getter type. So it's not probably who I would take. I would go like out of left field and take like a Jacoby Walter or one of the guards we talked about in Collier or Carrington, somebody like that before I would probably want to go Connect. But also at a certain point, like he was high on boards for a reason. So taking a guy that's just sort of falling weirdly isn't the worst thing in the world to me either.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it makes sense because they traded away Avdija, right? So we're going to replace him with scoring. And Tunis was carrying the team on his own in the scoring department with Kuzma. And they need some fresh legs, I think in that way, Connect makes sense at the wing. Put scoring on the wing and trade away Avdija, a connecting wing. I think I like the trade, to be honest. Of course, he has a great contract, so they have to pay an extra pick for that. And you have future picks. Future picks are always good. If these teams develop for 1-2 years, then you can pull the trigger with these picks, trade for maybe a number 2 option or a number 3 option. So to be honest, I like the trade. Because at first, I was shocked. I was like, okay, Avdija is going to be a long-term piece. Yep. But if you can get 4 picks and you have Brogdon, you can move as well to get some extra picks, maybe later on in the first round. Yeah, man. It wouldn't shock me if it's Dalton Connect, but I'm going with the sentiment here, man. Going for the guard with the local kid, Carlton Carrington. It's one of those two. At least I hope so for Wizards fans.
Is there any world where do we think they take another big? Duran Holmes kind of a tweener big a little bit in a good way. Like I think you do a little bit of both. Kalel Ware is another name that might start to get some buzz around this part of the draft. I guess could you guys see them going bigger at this point?
Maybe that's committing too much salary, man. You have a number 2 pick, and you have another lottery pick. And do you facilitate these guys? Yeah, they have the room to play them both. And if Sarr wants to be a 4, they need 5, right? But then the struggle comes, is Darren Holmes really a 5? He's more of the tweener. And how much do you want to... Yeah, if you look at how the Wizards play, 4 out, 5 out offense, then Holmes makes more sense.
Guys, Sham says the Wizards are taking Carlton Bub Carrington at number 14.
Hey, okay. I love that one. Even though I haven't seen him all this year. It's last week I started watching for the first time. I'm happy for you both, man. A local kid, they traded to take him. So that's a good thing, right? That's the thing that this franchise knows what they're doing.
That probably makes Wiz Twitter the happiest overall. So I don't want to hear any complaining in a couple years here. He was a late bloomer. He had a couple of rough stretches during the year. But a bigger guard, I think he's going to kill people in pick and roll. I buy the shooting. Again, good size. So if you're just taking a bet on a big switchable guard, with some upside, I'm all for it. I love this draft so far overall. So let's do it, man. I mean, let's ride. I think taking a young guy like that at this point at the guard position makes sense. Maybe that means we're pivoting away from certain high usage guards that are already on the roster that I don't love watching. So yeah, let's take it. Kevin, I know this was not like the highest guy left on your board here. So any positive indicators in the numbers from you on Bub?
So the things I would say I like about him is, number one, he rebounds. 6 rebounds per 40, some decent playmaking, and a 2-to-1 assist turnover ratio, which is pretty good. So that would I'd say would be the positives. I have some concerns based on what I see in the numbers, specifically not great shooting. We're talking 49.6% effective field goal percentage, which is not too good. Just right around 51% on 2s, 32% on 3s. Did shoot free throws decently. And then steals and blocks were very low, which is a bit of a concern for a guy who, that's a position where there's supposed to be athleticism. So I don't love the pick here. I think there were some other guys that I would have much preferred, but I don't hate it either. This is like I've said before, the draft, it kind of flattens out, and he's towards the bottom of the flattened out range, but he's still in that flattened out range where the guys, there isn't like a whole lot of difference between, say, where I have him, which is like borderline, like in that first round grade, to basically, I think they've overpicked him by 6-7 slots, but that's all right. The draft is kind of missing the top 5-6 players anyway. So
I didn't do a conventional board this year. I kind of ranked players by position or role, and then kind of tiered them at that point. So I think this is really about where I would have started to have him, in that kind of, lottery, end of lottery range. So yeah, Bub Carrington, welcome to Washington, D.C. Probably spent plenty of time here as somebody growing up in the Baltimore area. So I don't know Kevin, who's the last local guy the Wizards took? Do you even remember one? Like I'm trying to think. It's been Juan Dixon.
Yeah, Dixon. Man, I remember that. Jeez, it has been a while. It feels like they've haven't they gotten some guys like for their G League team that were.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a couple pieces, but not anybody that was like a major fixture. And actually, Dixon went 18th, if I remember correctly, that year.
So yeah, they traded Courtney Alexander. Remember him? To get that pick, traded him to the Hornets.
Yeah, Mark has it in the chat. Juan Dixon, you mentioned obviously our guy Jihadi, who was on here earlier in the show. So yeah, that's probably the next one I remember. Other than that, is taking a Georgetown guy, but he's also not from Maryland originally, like Bub and Dixon are. So
yeah, I mean Porter was from Louisiana. So
yeah, that's right. Yep. All right. I mean, this kind of fits their blueprint, right? Like bigger positional size guys, maybe some switchability here. I don't know. Ersin, I know you didn't watch a lot of Bub. We talked about him last week, so you got a couple watches in before, before this actually draft here. So any key thoughts or takeaways or things you saw that you really liked about him?
It's very limited what I saw. It was the late season games of him. But what I saw is offensive creativity. I think he's going to be the leading playmaker and self-creator on the perimeter. And he fits Coulibaly very well because that's an area where Coulibaly isn't as good. And I think if those two play in the second unit together, they complement each other very well. I think on the defensive end, I'm not sure what to expect of Bob. I think Pitt had to win these games at the end of the conference play. And he produced. I think that's a good sign always. But they haven't seen enough to him to have a fully take. But what I picked is offensive creativity. And he plays with that flair that you need, just like what Poole has, for example. He plays with that Hooper type of mentality. That's what I draw. But he makes good decisions, especially with the ball in his hands. That's what I took away. I think that fits Coulibaly very well because that's the need that he needs. And if you put him alongside Coulibaly, that will help. But is he a starter? I don't know, man. It's too early to say.
I like the idea of them running pick and roll together. I think that's going to be interesting and fun to watch. And the last time the Wizards took an exciting 1-5 duo, I like that too. A couple good comments in the chat here. I mean, a lot of good comments in the chat here, but just two that stood out because they were things I was literally just about to make point wise. Lior mentioned, he has not turned 19 years old yet. So I think that kind of excuses away some of the inconsistency there. And it never makes no sense that he grew 8 inches between junior year of high school and freshman year of college. I think that's another really good point here too. Like the first time I heard about him, he was a 5'11" guard. So being a 6'5" guard a couple years later is not the worst thing in the world. So hopefully he's kind of growing into that body and that skill set. And we kind of stole one maybe here from people potentially. That's the hope.
It could be,
All right, Ersin, you want to go get some sleep here. Actually, I want you to go get some sleep here. It is in the middle of the night for you. So thank you for joining us. Throw us kind of last parting shots here, any bold predictions for the draft or any names that you really want people to pay attention to between now and the end of the first round.
I don't know, man. At the end of the first round, who would I take? Let me think about that for a second. Who would I take? If Pacome Darrier is still there, I would like him to go to Washington. He's one of those most boom or bust type of prospects because the off-ball defense stuff is very bad. But that's the thing that only comes to mind because the good things are mostly if you invest in it. I think Washington can invest in him. And the other one is maybe that's not really reaching to me, but it could be seen as reaching because he's lower on consensus boards. It's Jalen Wells from Washington State. You're getting one of the best shooters in the class in Jalen Wells. I think this team needs that at the 3 and the 4 slot. I think Jalen Wells is going to be surprising people in the later parts of the first round, maybe in the second round. But he's one of my guys in this class. I'm a bit biased. And the third one is Trent Flowers, man, from the NBL. 6'8", paint touch generator. I think he is one of the more underrated players in this class in terms of how he's covered it. And the media, I think, didn't really help him with a Louisville commitment. And then he took away the commitment from Louisville and went to the NBL. So that maybe left the print of him as a bad reputation, which is unfair to me. But Trent Flowers is the third guy, man.
I like that. All right. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you. Everybody go check the E. Demir NBA Substack. Thank you, sir. Get some sleep. You can catch up on all this tomorrow morning.
I appreciate you, gentlemen, for letting me come on. And yeah, man, I think it's time for me to call the night.
Sounds good, buddy. All right, rest up.
Have a great one. See ya.
All right. 26. That's what we're waiting on now here. We got a little time to go here, Kevin. Any big thoughts or takeaways from the overall draft so far, and then obviously more specifically the Wizards draft so far?
I guess one, it's been there've been some genuine surprises tonight, especially like Ron Holland going as high as he did. Not shocked. I had him with 7th overall on my board here, but that's going 5th. I think was much higher than the consensus mocks would have you believe. He was more like at 10, 11. And Zach Edey going as I can remember when Edey was supposed to be a 2nd round pick, which was basically at the end of the season. Like, what did Edey do over the last 2 months that he didn't do over the preceding 2 years to make himself the 9th pick overall? So it's interesting. I think to me, one of my favorite picks, of course, is Sacramento taking Devin Carter. I swear it's based on some of their draft picks over the past couple of years. I think that they might. I feel like they tapped my laptop because they keep picking guys that I've got ranked high in Yoda. So
Memphis. I've had a lot of similar dudes where it's just like, whoa, okay. I thought I was higher on him than most people. I had the Santi Aldama ahead of most folks, and he's not been as good as I thought he would be, but he's still solid. And I don't think they've given him a full chance there. But a lot of their guys have been, I think, guys we've both been fans of. This Devin Carter pick, I like that a lot for Sacramento and what they need too, because I think he's probably the better version of what they wanted out of somebody like Davion Mitchell as just sort of a defensive-minded point of attack guard. He's bigger, he's more athletic, and I think he shoots it better too. So
I think he's got more. I think he's a more dynamic player than Davion Mitchell is.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, that'll help him a lot. So, all right. I don't know.
So the Heat, I don't know if you saw who the Heat picked, but they just took Khalil Ware.
That makes sense. And it's funny, the question with Ware universally has been the motor. So if anybody can get a guy to figure out motor related issues or whip somebody into shape, it's historically been the Miami Heat. So they're going to find out if he can kind of cut the mustard here pretty quickly. And he's also somebody I think that is skilled enough or versatile enough that they can play him next to Bam Adebayo. And Bam is a little undersized. He keeps getting kind of dinged up. So having another, forward-ish player, forward center player to put next to him some of the time, I think is smart, honestly.
Yeah. It's not, there aren't too many guys better to learn how to play defensively than to be partnered or to play behind Bam. So that's pretty good. Sixers, there's some interesting players here for the Sixers. Deron Holmes. If they want to go small, again, KJ Simpson, although I can't imagine they would pick him this early. Tyler Smith is still there. If they're looking for shooting, Jared McCain is there. That guy can just flat out knock it down.
I think I told you this one already, Kevin, but my wife and I went to the first round in Brooklyn, and in one of those games against James Madison, McCain just started raining threes down, and they did not know what to do about it. And they had Terrence Edwards, who was an NBA-level wing defender, on him, and he was just trying to chase him around screens, and McCain was taking deep threes, and just every one of them off his hand looked good. And it was this dude just buried them in the first 10 minutes of the game. And I would take a shot on a guy like that having more playmaking too. And he's not got a ton of size, but you take him at 26 and maybe you can even play him and Bub together some, especially as you kind of figure out, especially as you're tanking for the next couple of years, you've got opportunities to kind of work those things out.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of playmaking there, but he did rebound a little bit for his position. I don't remember his height, but I guess he's pretty small. 6.4 rebounds per 40 though.
He is 6'3.25" with shoes on, so 6'2" probably without shoes. He only probably guards one position, but he'll guard it well enough, and I think he'll shoot the shit out of it.
Yeah, I mean, he was 41% on threes last year, 88.5% from the line. So that's knocking it down.
Everybody loved Reed Shepherd and his shooting. I think McCain is just as good a shooter as Reed is personally. So he doesn't do some of the other things that Reed does, which is why he's lower. But just in terms of raw shooters, I think it's fair to say that those are probably the two best guys in the draft, I think.
Yeah, it does seem like one thing that this draft class has that I think last year's draft class really didn't is a few really good shooters. That was a big flaw at the top of last year's draft. There were a bunch of guys who just couldn't shoot. The Thompson brothers, for example.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. Man. All right. I'm still kind of like, I don't know, like vibrating here back and forth a little bit. Like I'm digging this this draft overall so far. I just kind of like where they're going, and they're players that I think I can personally get excited about. And whether they're the guys I would have taken at both picks, I actually like both guys at both picks, so that helps. But either way, I just kind of like their process, and the goal is positional size and switchability and things like that. And one of them is a little more of a gamble than the other, but you took him at 14. So, that doesn't bother me.
So, hey, real quick,
Sure.
This is a guy we really haven't talked about, you and I.
Mm-hmm.
What is the deal with Tristan Newton and why he's considered to be basically an end of the second round pick? When I just real quick, I mean, I look at his numbers. I don't have him with like a first round grade, but I have him with a high second, and didn't shoot it great from 3 last year, but 80% from the free throw line, rebounds like crazy, tons of assists. So what's wrong with him?
So I think the knock on Newton is he's an older player that transitioned up from Coastal Carolina. And I think people are kind of assuming that he benefited a decent amount from the people around him at UConn, but he's a table setting point guard. He guards the shit out of people. I think his shot is ugly personally, and I don't expect him to be a plus shooter, but if someone took him as a second round guard, like I don't have a problem with it. I think he's another guy that could come in and be like a defensive pit bull, for you off the bench right away. Even if I were like a playoff team, as an energy, go guard this guy 94 feet kind of guard. Hey, cool. I'm all about it.
Yeah. I mean, he's in there at 60 in the mock, in the consensus mock. We're both using the consensus,
rookie scale,
the rookie scale consensus.
Yep.
But I mean, if he's sitting there at 51, I'd be like, snap him up, because I think he could actually be pretty good.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. All right, let's hit some shout outs here. Shout out to my guy, Mitchell Bernstein, for making a donation here. We've got Riley Richards. Go follow Riley on Wizards Twitter. He's a great follow. And, hey, come on, man. He's tuning into Wizards games from New Zealand. That's a passionate dude right there. Caitlin Rios, appreciate you doing that. It's a great follow on Twitter as well here. Shout out to Molly Mitchell and Joel Wanger for participating here. Again, we are raising money for the National MS Society. MS is multiple sclerosis. That is like the hardest word for me to say for whatever reason. But it's a terrible disease, and hopefully these donations help us end MS so that I don't have to say that word for much longer. There's several members of the Wizards community that suffer from MS, so trying to knock them out. So the link will be here in the chat in a second. Again, if you want to participate in some way, shape, or form, any donation is appreciated. So that's always nice for us to be able to say we did some good here as a Wizards community. We had a goal of $2,000. We are at $1,832 for the night, so we're halfway through the first round. So if we can kind of get ourselves over that $2,000 hump, everybody, I would greatly appreciate it. I can feel like we're doing some good with the show here, and I'm not just like wasting all of my time yelling into the void. We could say we did some good here. It'll get my wife off my case a little bit about all the time I spent podcasting over the last week leading up to the draft here. So help me help her feel like her husband's not an internet loser. All right, let's see here. A couple other names that we got here that we got some donations from. Just shout out everybody. I'm traveling right now, so I don't have access to a printer and have everybody's names available. So if I miss you, it's not intentional, and I will make it up on a future podcast. Shout out Will Copps. Played his band on the show the other night here, Wall of Trophies. They're awesome. Go check them out. Always nice to support.
Song, by the way.
Yeah, right. Kind of a good bop. I was feeling it.
Yeah.
Austin Bailey, that's my college roommate and one of my oldest and dearest friends. So shout out Austin. He's a long-suffering Wizards fan, but he lives in San Antonio now. So if he ever switched to be a Spurs fan, I don't think I would blame him at this point, especially with the Castle duo there. One of the most dedicated listeners to the show here, Sam Hershey. Thank you so much, Sam Hershey. Sam Hershey, thank you, man. You're just always great interacting with you. Thank you for all that you do. Another member of the educational field, which is obviously got a near and dear place in my heart as well. My wife is a teacher, so shout out to Sam for all that he does here. Our guy, Greg Finberg, just always appreciate Greg. I think he's probably chopping it up with the boys at a bar here in DC or there in DC. So always appreciate Greg's work, and he's a great follow. Best up and coming young journalist here in the Wizards coverage. Cup of Java. I'm going to try to pronounce this right. Jibu Abraham. Thank you. Again, another guy great to interact with. His one plug is for the next, for each of the next day in the 365 days coming up. I challenge everyone reading or hearing this to do one nice and or kind thing for someone they don't know and or have never met. Be the agent to pay it forward. That is a nice. great message, man. I love that. Hey, let's pay it forward. That's what we can be as a Wizards community. We might kill each other over who likes what pick, but hey, no, that's an opportunity to kind of turn it around from a karma perspective. Just a quick pause here to check in on the picks for a little bit. Jared McCain to the 76ers. I think that makes a ton of sense, Kevin, just to give some shooting around Embiid. How do you kind of view that fit for them?
Yeah, that's exactly the guy I thought they were gonna target there, and I love the pick for them. Assuming that he ends up signing there, they don't trade him, and Morey doesn't feel bad about moving guys around, so that's certainly a possibility. But I'd like the pick for them.
I think Seth Curry was there and good a couple years ago as sort of that just floor spacer, solid guard that's going to like not do dumb things with the ball. And I think McCain is like at least Seth Curry-ish. So another Duke guard. So it makes some sense there too, just from a easy, lazy comparison type, but just like a cool dude and a fun follow. So I think hopefully Philly fans treat him right.
Yeah.
All right. I think I've butchered my guy's name here a couple times, but David Svircek, Svirjcek. I'm sure I just mangled that. David, I'm so sorry. You're a great dude to interact with on Wizards Twitter, so please apologies for the pronunciation there. You're going to have to phonetically do it for me so I don't keep messing it up. Also from Debbie McGuire there, said, thanks for the show. It's a really invaluable resource for me as a longtime Wizards fan. So he's happy to help support the fundraiser here. So we really appreciate him doing that. And from Marissa Powell from Molecular Melts Creative Scent Lab Company. Marissa is the CEO of Molecular Melts, and she's extremely interested in participating in the fundraiser here. Her company was founded in June 26th, it was founded in 2022 in Washington, D.C. by a Black woman in science with the goal of using science to relax using eco-conscious business practices. All candles and wax melts are uniquely curated, crafted, and hand-poured with love and passion by her. Jars and containers are made from recycled material, 100% cotton wicks, 100% natural premium soy wax, and raw and natural ingredients. So, if anybody out there needs, some stuff to help them relax and chill and some nice scents around the house, go check out Molecular Melts. So thank you, Melissa, for doing that. Let's see, Derek Boswell. Shout out Derek. Just like one of the awesome dudes that I've met through Wizards fandom. Just said some nice words about the show here. And then also a plug for District of Collectors, Top Shot community. If you're not familiar with NBA Top Shot, it's a great way to kind of, pay attention to important moments in your favorite players or franchises history and things like that. And it's also just like a great community. Those guys do an amazing job of getting events together and stuff like that. So if you're looking for like a little pocket of fandom of your own, District of Collectors are awesome. And I would highly recommend checking those guys out. And Derek is a great ambassador of that as well. Kevin, in the interim here, I know the Lakers, the pick is in here. Any thoughts or directions you could see them going?
Well, so the Lakers need just about everything because they need talent, they need cheap talent, and they're unlikely, in my opinion, to be as healthy as they were last season. So I think they're very much in that best available. If I were, picking for them, man. So I'd be tempted to go with one of my favorites here, KJ Johnson. for the ball handling and the
KJ Simpson.
Yeah. KJ, what did I say?
KJ Johnson. That's another guy.
Yeah.
KJ Simpson gave him some shooting. They did take shooting. They just took Dalton Connect, a 29-year-old from Tennessee. Just getting on the 29, not quite that old. He is 23 years old. Spent a couple years at a mid-major school before transferring to Tennessee this year, and he was probably the second best player in college basketball behind Zach Edey. What do you think of the Dalton Connect fit for the Lakers?
I think it's a good, well, it's a pretty good pick in the sense. I mean, he's a good shooter and good agility. You know, he got some moves. He didn't really finish very well at the rim, just under 50%, 49.9%. So that's not too great, but he can shoot the three, which should pair very well with LeBron and AD. And you know, where are they picking? 17? That's not a bad pick there. You know, I don't mind that pick at all. I think for them, I might have gone Deron Holmes, but I can understand why they want more of a wingy guard kind of guy. So,
yeah, that makes sense. Carter mentioned in the chat, Roger Mason was from DC and played for Good Counsel and ended up a Wizard. So that's a good pull of another guy. That was one of their local picks from our convo a couple minutes ago. Yeah, this is shaping up to be an interesting night. And there's still a good amount of guys I like on the board here, Kevin. So I think like at 26, I'm kind of feeling they could get some stuff done here. I am expecting them to do something and make some kind of move here, whether it's trading back or trading out or getting a young piece or something like that. But any sense from you on what they'll do at 26?
Yeah, I think it's going to be their best player available. I wouldn't even be shocked if it's a little bit of a draft and stash kind of guy. I don't know. It just seems like Dawkins last year, he made a bunch of deals, some of which didn't really seem to make a lot of sense to me. But he made a bunch of deals, ended up still getting, I think, the guy they wanted in the second round.
Yep.
And I wouldn't be shocked to see them try to do something like that again, where they're just, moving the picks around, trying to turn it into some extra picks. If they actually make the pick,
that's a big
supposedly Deron Holmes is mocked to be in that range, so he'd be a guy they could pick up there. Tyler Smith is still available. I suspect he'll be gone before then, but if he's there, that'd be a guy to snap up. I'm just skimming through my list here. Jacoby Walter is still available at this point. He's interesting. Yves Missy is available. I don't remember where he got mocked. So,
Missy is 22 on consensus mock. So,
yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, that's at least a potential like backup center. Picking 26, that's not too bad. Isaiah Collier is still available.
Yep.
Which is, I can't imagine he's still going to be sitting there.
I would be surprised too.
It seems like that would be a little redundant to pick him if you've got
Bub
Carrington, but
like you said, best available, and you figure out the fit later. If one of those two guards works out for you, that's not the worst.
And at 26, I wouldn't be just like outraged if they did what Ersin suggested and took Bacom Dalier. So.
Yeah, a French player, again, that could maybe stay overseas for another year also might not hurt them. So I could see that too. A couple good names you mentioned there. The Tyler Smith one is interesting. He's another former 5-star recruit that had a high pedigree coming out of high school. He played at Overtime Elite. So did Alex Sarr. So I don't think they were on the same team, but I'm sure they've played together or against each other, at some point in that league. So there's some familiarity there. They played against each other when the Perth Wildcats came over and played against Overtime Elite. So that's kind of your front court of the future there. And they have maybe some switchability and some shooting together. So good size. I think he'll really stretch the floor. Didn't guard well this year, but again, 19-year-old guy in an adult league, that's not a crazy thing to me and doesn't mean that he can't guard. So I think that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
All right, let's check back in
Magic.
here. Yeah, they're coming, I would think. Shout out to my guy Eric Aronson from my alma mater, Arundel High School. So that's my guy right there. Eric is just the absolute best. So thank you, Eric, for all you do for the show here. And just another plug for Stateside Vodka and their Surfside hard iced teas, hard lemonades. Every single flavor you can think of are delicious. That'll be my first thing home from vacation. I'm going to pour myself a drink, sit down, and just reflect on how nice this draft has been overall for the Wizards. Hopefully we finish strong with the 26th pick here. They're making some progress, kind of moving through these picks a little more quickly now, it seems like. Shout out to Noel Dickover. Noel is like the literal, probably most artistic and talented person on Wizards Twitter, and his medium is pumpkin. Go follow him on Twitter if you're not already. Like the things that man does, carving into a, I guess a pumpkin's a vegetable, right? Is unreal. So shout out to him and just go follow him. And if you need some decorative pumpkins this year coming up for Halloween, can't do better than him. And also, it's just a really nice guy to interact with too. So shout out Noel, does an awesome job. And our mutual buddy here, Ben Becker, appreciate Ben for participating. Always great engagement from Ben. And I owe him some free throws. I don't know if you saw this, Kevin. Ben challenged Damo and I to make 10 consecutive free throws and record it. After hoops a couple weeks ago, I made 8, and then the janitor kicked me out and was just like, no. So I have not gotten back in the gym here yet in the last 2 weeks to do that. So Ben, I owe you some free throws.
You got to respect the streak.
I know, seriously. I was like, come on, man, really? We just played for 2.5 hours. You can't give me 6 more minutes. Also, probably my luck being rushed. I figured I would probably missed it anyway. So I need to check with Ben and see if I can just go out and make 2 additional free throws here now. And just does that count of a delayed streak? That will have been they would have been my 10 most recent free throws I've taken. So I feel like it should count. All right. If you were watching this live on YouTube, click the like button for us here. Kevin, that reaction, you liked something or were shocked by something that just happened?
I was a little surprised.
Okay.
Tristan da Silva just got picked by Orlando. And I've got to say, I have not loved Orlando's drafts last. I didn't like I did not. Jet Howard was not ranked highly in Yoda. And
right.
Tristan da Silva, I've got a solid second round grade on him. Can shoot. And I guess that's probably the attraction for Orlando. Doesn't rebound or do much else. So
it just seems weird to take another forward, right? Like how much, like they can't get minutes for a guy like Chuma Okeke already, but they're going to somehow get minutes for Da Silva right off the bat here too. They've got Jet Howard there, another supposedly shooting wing forward who doesn't really do much else. I like Da Silva more than you do. 18 is a little high for me personally, but yeah, I just don't like the fit there unless somebody's on the move. Like he seems locked in terms of minutes behind Franz and Paolo. So that's a little strange to me.
Yeah, I think I just, for them, like if I'm picking for need, I would have preferred they'd gone for a guard.
Collier or somebody would have been great, I think.
Yeah, I think they could use a guard who could shoot. And or, but
yeah, I don't know. This is a little bit of a strange one. But hey, it's a guy. I don't think either of us really wanted to go to Washington at 26. So please keep taking all the guys we don't like and then leave the dudes we want, for later on in the board here.
So I'm trying to think of who Toronto. It's like, okay, Toronto, who's the 6'8" guy who can't shoot? The 6'8" guard who can't shoot.
I've seen a lot of people mock Tyler Smith to them for stuff. He can shoot, but he fits that kind of size mold at least. So that wouldn't totally shock me. And Yves Missy as kind of a big athletic rim protector-y raw guy also wouldn't really shock me there either. So we'll see what they decide to do. Keeping it rolling. Chris Dashi, thank you for the generous donation as well. Very nice of you to do that. Nick Wills, shout out my guy. Greetings from Belgium. How cool is that? Just the fact that there are Wizards fans from like all over the world is crazy to me. I live here and am from here, and I'm kind of sad I watch this team sometimes, or I'm stuck with this team. So that someone chooses it from a different continent is still wild to me. So shout out Nick, another great guy. Go follow him on Twitter. He's just a great dude to interact with. Carter Semple, I think Semple, Semple. Carter is in the chat here. Great contributions as well. Carter, another guy. Hey, thank you for all the support of the show, man. Awesome stuff. Ryan Moy. This is another guy. He does some great coverage here of local sports here on his own. So check him out. Tommy, the best of the best at spotting people in the crowd and freeze framing them on his screen. So he got that great picture of Wes Unseld with a young lady behind him that just makes the picture really funny. I don't know. Some people might know what I'm talking about there. I'll leave it at that. Tommy on Wizards Twitter.
I just have to take a really short break here. I'll be right back.
Yeah, please. Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, Tommy's a great follow. Been in the chat here tonight too. So great guy as well. Just a lot of good dudes here in Wizards Twitter and Wizards community and our little Believe in Wizards community here. So I really appreciate you guys. It's might sound corny, but it just makes rooting for this team fun to like the people we interact with. So that's awesome stuff. This one just made me laugh reading it. Saw a contribution from Yannick Sosa, really from Steve Bridges. So shout out Steve for the funny one there. Yannick needs every one of those $50 because I don't think he'll even be playing professional basketball in Spain here for very long. Shout out Yannick for being in the Spanish B League essentially and averaging like 2 points per game this year as well. Another dude we'll never see, make it over, got an anonymous donor or two here. So anybody who just made a contribution, didn't want credit for it. Very nice of you to do that. And, just cool stuff from our overall community here. Couple more donations came in as we were going. So very nice of folks continue to do that. Let's check in here and see who else got added to the list. Kevin Ferguson. Thank you, Kevin. Very nice of you to do that. Appreciate you contributing to the drive here. Again, if anybody wants to do that, hey, we appreciate you. Shout out Terpskins. Jack Boettcher. Boettcher. Thank you. Jack is a big fan of local basketball. So, hey, man, that's what we try to do and bring a lot of good stories to the table here. If anyone wants any more local basketball stories, shout out our sort of spin-off podcast we've done here, Believe in DMV Hoops, kind of focus on, other players in the DMV area, some of the local college players that don't get the same love. So people like Jack that love local basketball as a whole make that one worth doing as well. But yeah, we're plugging right along here on the fundraising drive here. So thank you to everyone that's contributed. Again, the goal here for the night is $2,000. We are at $1,917. So, if folks can get us over the hump here, I would very much appreciate that personally. We love hitting goals here in DC. The team is going to hit a bunch of goals for us here moving forward. So, we'll see what we can do. All right, at this point, let's bring on my guy, Osman Baig. Oz, you are on with us, man. How's it going? Oh, he was on with us. We'll try again here in a minute. So we'll see. Okay, some S. Smith, stop the draft and stash talk. Y'all have Stockholm syndrome from the Ernie area. I mean, look, man, that's this is one of those things where I think they've only got so many minutes for these young guys. Unless they trade out more of these vets, they're probably going to want to keep promoting some of the older guys. So just beef them up. We'll see. I don't know if they'll draft and stash. I'm not suggesting they will, but they want to be bad next year. And Brooklyn also, wants to be bad as well. So they're going to be competing and having any of these young guys that could help them, kind of contribute next year. I don't think that's a big shock that they might not going to do that. Jacoby Walter, thank you, Locked On Law, for pointing this out. Jacoby Walter goes to the Toronto Raptors. Makes some sense. Young guy with some upside, positional size. I think he'll really shoot it. So we'll see what that looks like. Carter asked, did the Wizards work out Ryan Dunn? Or I'm thinking you're asking about the Wizards maybe, or you asked about Toronto. That would have been the good guy with size that didn't shoot. So that was probably in response to something Kevin said a couple minutes ago. So that's a good point. Desan asked, thoughts on Corey being on the trade market? Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think they should get whatever they can for everybody. If Deni's going, anybody could go at this point here. Oz, are you here with us?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, man. How's it going?
Screen's not working? Let me see. Hold on.
Yeah, there's no camera at the moment here. So we've got Kevin away with the Yoda background. We've got you with the black screen.
Let me jump off my phone. All right, I'll be back in a minute.
Yeah, sounds good. We'll keep this rolling here. So yeah, the pick is officially in the The Toronto Raptors select Jacoby Walter. What do you think of that one, Kevin?
Not bad. Again, just outside the first round for me, but that doesn't mean he ranks 30th. I mean, I've got him 21st overall, basically. More or less a tie for about 18th-ish. So solid pick. I mean, not the big thing with him. So I'm looking at the numbers here. Only 42% on twos.
Yeah,
which is pretty yikes. 34% on threes, which isn't great, but 79% on free throws. So his shot isn't necessarily broken.
Right.
Not a whole lot of non-scoring production either. Didn't rebound a lot, not a lot of assists, not a lot of steals or blocks. So a little bit of concerns there, but still, I mean, he's sort of big, tough kid. And, the kids at Baylor tend to be good defenders. So, it's an interesting, I mean, we sort of joked about, who Toronto was going to pick, who's like the 6'8" guy who can't shoot. Well, they didn't pick a 6'8" guy, but they did pick a big guy who's big for his position who can't shoot. So,
yeah, I really buy the shot as a perimeter shooter. I think the twos thing will come around with size or with strength and filling out his frame and things like that. But I think he'll actually shoot it. It looks pretty clean. It was a weird fit again. I think they kind of lacked the playmaking that they'd had the last couple of years. He's actually a guy that I think if he had stayed another year, could have got himself into the top 10. I don't know if that's worth it to wait an extra year to go up 8 spots. So maybe just pull the trigger and go where you go if you're him. But I think there's a lot of upside there too.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take your word for that. I'm just looking. I'm doing a little bit of math here because I'm just curious as to how far off. I was a little surprised how big the sample size was on his three. So we're talking 220 3-point attempts on the season, and so. So I'm just curious, what would be, let's say, to get him up to a 37% 3-point shooter here?
It'd probably be a lot, but it was just their offense was not as free flowing as it had been typical years. They added Jeremy Roach out of Duke this year. I think having a real table setter for him would have helped. There was a lot of him dribbling and then shooting bad shots, and I think that had a decent amount to do with it. So I think he's probably a guy that if he shoots 37+% for his year, for his career, closer to 40, I wouldn't be shocked to see that personally.
Yeah, I mean, just to try to get him up to a 37% shooter, we're talking about 6-7 more makes over the course of the season. So it's not it's a massive difference. I mean, it's one of those things that's good to keep in mind. That I mean, he makes 7 more threes over the course of what did he play 36 games probably. We're talking, instead of 75 of 220, we're talking 82 of 220, and he's 37% 3-point shooter. And we're like, yeah, he can shoot it a little bit. So
yeah, it makes sense. I'm totally with you there. Shout out David Angevine in the chat. If someone tells me their name once, I will pronounce it right, hopefully forever. So sorry if I'm butchering people's names in the chat here, but nice words about the show here. Made a great comment about hitting that like button for us, everybody. This blows the show up for people if they see a bunch of likes. The Twitter and YouTube algorithms promote the show. More people join it. We get more eyes on it. That's better for us. And sponsors want to keep sponsoring us. So I have more money to go do and cover cool things and talk about with the team here too. So help us out with that. And as always, just thanks everybody for listening to this. I know there are a lot of things you could be doing during the draft. You could be watching this ESPN coverage where presumably they're comping every white guy to Bobby Sura or something terrible, or talking about who this year's Kawhi Leonard is, or everyone under 6'9" is Draymond Green or some dumb shit. So not that this is the most elevated draft talk of all time. Obviously Kevin is smart. I'm trying to dumb us down a little bit here, but the
opposite.
No, we're actually talking about the players and what they do well, as opposed to whatever weird comp we can sort of weirdly shoehorn them into. So shout out us. How about that?
Yeah.
Shout out all you for being in the chat. We're getting close. We're inching our way toward the Wizards pick here. So
I'm actually really interested in this Cleveland pick, I gotta say, because they got a lot of different directions they could go.
Wing.
They could use some size in the backcourt. Jacoby Walter actually would have been a potentially interesting pick for them.
I had the same thought. Yep. Supposedly Cleveland is taking Jalen Tyson out of Cal. So Jalen, again, we've talked about him on the show a good amount. This is a guy I really like. He was kind of a wing, 3-and-D-ish wing earlier in his career at Texas and Texas Tech. And then at Cal was kind of unleashed on a really bad, underwhelming Cal team where he had to do everything. He's basically, Kevin, like, if you watched him, it was like bad college team version of James Harden. Like the dude ran kind of everything for them offensively, but 6'6" creator type, kind of a weird, like arky moonball shot, but I think he'll make them at a reasonable clip. So, and not probably who I would have taken directly if I were Cleveland in this spot based on who's left on the board, but I like him as a player.
Yeah, I wonder how he tested like in when they had their workouts in terms of shooting. Because 36% on threes, 79, almost 80% on free throws is pretty interesting. I like I will say he did not rank very high, but I do like his non-scoring production. He had some 7.9 rebounds, 4.0 assists per 40. Not a ton of like blocks and steals, but some. A lot of turnovers, which sort of speaks to what you were talking about. You know, he's more of a wingy player, and it looks like he was doing a lot of playmaking. Usage was pretty high. Didn't shoot it very well from anywhere, really. Didn't get to the free throw line a ton, so it wasn't suggesting. I mean, we're talking 5 attempts per 40, which isn't huge.
Sure.
So he wasn't stressing defenses overly, but, you know, Yoda doesn't, for whatever reason, seems to just hate guys from Cal, so.
I don't blame him. I think people from Cal hate guys from Cal at this point too. So,
yeah.
All right, we got a new face joining us here on the show. Osman Baig of Bulls Forever. Oz, thanks for coming on, man. How are things and thoughts on the draft here so far?
Things are good. What's going on, boys? Draft's been solid. Like, look, Wizards Twitter's happy. Draft grades are solid. The Sarr pick is a no-brainer. Once he got past number 1, I think that was the only thing that would have created a meltdown today was if Risashe kind of went number 1. I think that was pretty much it. If that happened, Wizards Twitter would have had a meltdown. I am curious to see who was number 1 on their board. Usually that stuff comes out after the fact. So that's just one thing I'm just kind of curious about. Carrington, I think you know my trepidation about the pick. I'll give you a couple of things. I love that they drafted a local player. They're pretty much usually never do that. So I'm happy that they took a local player. Baltimore. I like that they took a young guard because they need a young guard. I like that he likes cats more than dogs. That's definitely a check in mine in your box. I know that check your box, you know?
Yeah.
And the guy plays chess, which is, I'm down with also. So there's a lot in his favor. The one stat that people seem to be ignoring is he does not get to the basket. And if you don't get to the basket, then you're going to have to settle at the elbow and in the mid-range. Then you have to be elite at the mid-range to be a lead guard if that's where you're going to be settling. Now, the thing is he's 18. Can he get stronger? Yes. Can he adjust his game to get to the basket? Yes. Some of the things that you saw this year were when he would get switches against bigs, he couldn't get by them. So does he have that elite first step to do that? Does he have but you don't necessarily need the elite first step. You just have to know how to manipulate the defense, get stronger. Given his age, I'm going to look at it with an open mind and say, hey, let's, it took someone with some upside. Let's see where it goes. I'm not, I just think that is a red flag that kind of has to be factored in. We'll just see how it goes, hope that it adjusts to that. Hope they have plenty of time. So like, as based on like what they have a lot of time. So let's just see what they do with it.
Yeah. Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Anywhere you'd like to see them go specifically with the 26th pick here?
I think, the funny thing, and I know you've commented about this a lot, is that the team does not have, you've always kind of took umbrage when people would say we have too many wings.
Yeah.
Do we really?
We might not have any by the end of the night if they keep making moves. So,
Corey might be pressed into duty as shooting guard. So then you take him kind of out of the 3-4 rotation. You have Bilal, you have Kuz. Is Kuz going to be here when the season starts?
Right.
I think we need a wing. We need, we need a 6'7", 6'8" guy who could shoot, play some defense. So I'm a couple of picks behind. I don't know who's on the board that kind of fits that mold, but that's what I'm looking at there. I think we need to add some wing depth right now. When 26 comes up.
Yeah, let's actually check in on the board here a little bit real quick. So Jalen Tyson from Cal went to Cleveland at 20. It sounded like Eve Missy, the rim runner, shot blocker, freshman center out of Baylor, was going to go to New Orleans at 21. So next guys available on the board that kind of fit that mold. Johnny Furphy out of Kansas is 23 on the board as a 6'8" shooter. Kyshawn George, I've heard it said 3 different times today by 3 different people. So see how it goes. 24 on the board, freshman out of Miami. Tyler Smith on the board at 26th, more of a 4, I think, but shoots it with some size at that 6'8" range. So kind of fits a little bit what you're talking about. Baylor Shireman, a little older player out of Creighton, almost 24 years old, but 6'7" and shoots it. And I think does a little playmaking too. So couple of guys there, I think, that are interesting at least.
Yeah, some guys that I would be perfectly happy with them taking. Mentioned before, Deron Holmes is interesting to me. Skimming through somebody I thought that Cleveland could have taken, or Orlando, was Antonio Reeves from Kentucky. He's older, already 24, but that guy can really shoot it. Yeah. Sort of going through Juan Nunez as well is interesting. Didn't test great in the combine, but he's an interesting player.
Let me throw something out there. I have no idea if they like Collier at all, but if someone like him slips all the way down to 26, you kind of double up on guard and just take someone who might be the best talent available.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see it.
Yes, I would. I'm not a big fan of Collier's. Yoda has been with like a second round grade up. Same with Carrington. Mm-hmm. But that said, having some more size and physicality in the backcourt would be an interesting change for the Washington Wizards.
Yeah.
And so I would be really fine with picking a couple of guards with some size and with some toughness to start changing over how they play in the backcourt. So I'd be perfectly fine with that. If he's sitting there and when they pick 26th, I would have no problem with them picking Collier.
Just a real quick timeout here, real quick, guys. I want to shout out our number 1 donor so far, Incorporating Services. Incorporating Services has been focused on providing great customer service to its clients since 1972. Whether you're a law firm or an entrepreneur and want to form an LLC or another type of company, form your company with the professionals. Incorporating Services also provides a variety of other corporate, registered agent, compliance, and UCC services, serving all 50 states. Check out INCSERV, that's inkserv.com for more details. Again, that's Incorporating Services. Shout out to those guys. Shout out to my guy, Taylor Jones, for just being one of the absolute best. So that's just very cool of them to kind of put us over the top here overall. Thank you to Lior. Pick 2 plus 14 plus 26 equals the donation amount. That's perfect. That's a great cause. And Lior is another guy. If you have another cause you're interested in donating to, last year's charity as well. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, another really great one to contribute to as well. So really appreciate Lior and all the nice work he does for our greater community. So I think that has us mostly caught up on our donations here. If I missed you and you were watching live here in the chat, poke me, please. I'm not trying to omit anybody. I'm doing my best to cross this off without having it printed out. So we'll do our best to keep it rolling. Okay. Let's see. Next
you need a printer
here.
In your go bag.
What's that?
I said you need a printer in your go bag.
I'm at a way too expensive Hilton in Redondo Beach, California, and the printer does not work here, and they can't print at the front desk somehow either. So Hilton, that's why I'm a Marriott guy. Sorry, fellas.
In Redondo, I can't imagine this place made it through the pandemic, but last time I was in Redondo Beach, there was a bar/restaurant that boasted 777 beers with 77 on tap. I did my best. I was there for about 4 days. I did my best to get through the 77 on tap, but
Yeah, there you go. Made a decent dent, I hope, at least.
I did. Way too many.
That would be
Not
awesome.
there?
Yeah, I have not seen that around here. There's a beer garden across the street from me, but no, I have not seen that yet. But I'm gonna go look the minute this ends because I'm gonna need a beer, I think. Let's see. Sounds like there's a trade here. Phoenix is trading the number 22 pick to Denver. Denver is going to take Deron Holmes. That's such a Denver pick, and he's going to end up being really good there. Shocker. Yeah. And in return, the Nuggets will send number 28, number 56, and 2 future second-round picks to the Suns. So the Suns basically get some extra stuff when they're kind of asset constrained just to trade back 6 spots. So, if you're the Suns and there's nobody you like there, I don't hate it. If I were the Suns and I needed a point guard, I would have just taken like Isaiah Collier and called it a day. But to each their own.
For the Suns, to be honest, they could have used Holmes. They could have. There's a couple of guys I think on here who could have helped them. The guy I keep mentioning, KJ Simpson, would have been an interesting player. Handler, he can shoot, good athlete.
Didn't we have Holmes to Denver in our mock draft last week?
Could have. I'm not sure.
No. I picked him for Sacramento.
Early too. I think.
Okay.
13.
Yeah, 13. Yeah. I'm much higher on him than I think everybody is.
All right. Before we get to the next pick here at 26 for the Wizards, I want to circle back around to the Deni conversation here a little bit. So Oz, I want to get your take here in a minute, but the most reasonable of the Deni fans in the entire Wizards Twitter community here got our guy Will Clayton jumping on the show here. So Will, look, man, you're a sane Deni stan in a world of maybe not as many sane Deni stans after the night. So what was your initial reaction to the trade, Will, and are you okay?
I appreciate you asking and checking. I'm all right. I think the fact that it happens on draft night and you get the immediate resolution of getting a pick used after helps soften the blow. But there was that, a couple hour period between the trade happening and the pick being made where I was very much not at peace with it. I can come around and I can understand I think just in a vacuum and from a value standpoint, I think getting 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and Malcolm Brogdon for Deni Avdija is a great trade. Maybe not great, but I think it's a fair trade. And I really think it's hard to be mad about that kind of return. It's just, for me, it really stings, 1, because of my obvious bias for liking Deni as a player, but 2, it's rare to have a guy like that where you draft him and he's kind of homegrown and he develops and gets a second contract, which was a steal given how he played last year, and especially in the second half of the season. It would have been really nice to kind of see that development through and see what kind of player that turns into. But, ultimately, I don't know. I'm gonna have to make my peace with it, depending on how good of a player Bub turns out to be. I think that's really where the decision's gonna lie. If Bub becomes a better player than Deni, then it's the right move, and you can't really hate on that decision. And I like Bub a lot, but I had a very strong fondness for Deni, so I'm gonna miss him. I really like the squad they're putting together in Portland, Yep. Dude, I even was wearing my freaking Deni hat like today, and I was just like, man. It's just wild because he's like the last guy I would have thought they would have moved outside of Bilal, and it really just does seal this whole like nobody's safe thing. I can't wrap my head around it. Oz had just tweeted something earlier. I don't get how they moved Deni before Kuz. I would think Kuz could have fetched a similar pick in that range. And it would have been really interesting to see, Deni as a younger player, he's still 23, develop with, Sarr's 19, Bub's 18, Bilal's still 19. That's a young core. I think you could build around that all has some flexibility. And, I'm just bummed to see Deni go. But I'm really excited to see Bub arrive. So
that's where my, it's not about Bub. So it's not Bub versus Deni. It's, was there no other path available to get a pick high enough to get Bub? That's really my question. And if there could you have used Corey? Could you have used Kuz? Could you have used both, frankly? or something like that. Because to me, Deni is on a mid-level type deal, 23 years old. Over his last 45 games, averaged 17, 8, and 4 on 60% true shooting. Seems like the type of player you'd want to keep around,
Yep.
But if you really want, but it does make sense. If you really want someone, you bring him in for a late workout. You find a way to go get him. That's what they did. I guess the question is, was that really the only way possible to ensure that you got him? And then second is, well, actually, you're thinking, okay, well, they have to be right. Do they really? Because it looks like they're going to be bad for a while. Even if they miss, then the conversation is going to go to the 25 draft.
Yep.
Well, my main takeaway there is Deni was just so good that he was going to keep us from getting Cooper Flagg. So I mean,
there you go.
Obviously we had no choice but to move him.
He was going to power up this year.
Yeah, that's yeah. You hadn't even begun to see his final form.
We'll have to watch and be Portland fans from afar. That's our only hope now. You know me, Will. Is the other biggest Deni fan on Wizard Twitter. I was equally apoplectic after it happened. But seriously, I didn't like it. I still kind of don't like it. Like, I do like having another pick selfishly as a draft nerd, but to Oz's point, to your point, I think there were probably other ways to go about it here. So, that's tough. Lior mentioned in the chat, Deni's contract has him earning $12 million in 2028 while he's still only 27 years old. Like, that's going to look like one of the better contracts in the league by then, I think. That's the part I kind of don't like. If he made $20 million and he needed to get off salary and he wasn't on the timeline, I'd be a little more excited about that.
That's the thing. Like, when you trade players for picks, it's usually under this understanding that, like, okay, well, we're resetting the contract timeline, getting someone on a rookie deal and having 4 years of team control. You have that with Deni. He's on a reasonable deal for 4 years.
You didn't need to reset it.
Proved he's a switchable 6'9" wing, had defensive chops. The offense and the shooting were coming around. He was getting downhill. He was getting to the rim. And not for nothing, I thought he completely fit the kind of like OKC model for the type of player that they look for. And the giving him the extension and then him going out and more than showing he deserved it. I thought he was safe. And I think a lot of the reactions to the trade from Wiz Twitters kind of say that, because whether you like Deni or didn't like Deni, I don't think anybody expected him to be moved this offseason after what he was able to do last year. The timing's just weird, because I think you could get a similar return next year. Or two, it's the same thing with Kuz. If you moved Kuz this year or next year, I think you get a first-round pick either way. But it's I guess, I don't know. It just really shows me that the front office vision is, I thought, oh, they're going young. This is going to take a while. Oh, wow, they're punting on a 23-year-old Deni for more first-round picks and younger players. Like, wow. So
this is something Matt and I touched on basically when we talked at a couple hours ago now, but and that is the possibility that Avdija did request a trade. We don't know that yet. I'm not reporting anything. I'm just speculating on it, that when you see something like this, though, a lot of times it's because the player, not necessarily that he went in and or had his agent go in and demand a trade, but that he said, well, if this is the way you plan on doing this, I'd rather be somewhere else. That there was something that happened, or not necessarily that happened bad, just something, a different vision for how the player fits into the organization. And he says, okay, then if that's the way it's going to be, then I would prefer to be elsewhere. And so the Wizards were able to make a deal and, find a new place for him and get a bunch of picks. And so they do the trade. And it's not necessarily that they've given up on him. It's just that maybe they don't see quite the same role. Like, maybe Deni thinks he should be point guard next year, and the team's like, well, we see you as a secondary, tertiary playmaker. We think you have the right role as kind of a attack off the wing, on the move kind of thing. And so they disagree on his ultimate role, and so they end up trading him. And that's, that could be what this is, more so than them thinking, well, I'm glad we got off of him.
Oh,
so.
Yeah, I mean, I think the return honestly indicates something where it's fair for both sides. It'll be interesting to see how Deni performs in Portland. Because, like I said, I do think their squad is really interesting with adding him and Klingon tonight. But yeah, I mean, I think it's more indicative of Dawkins and Winger just being the type of guys that are going to maximize value for players. And maybe they just think last season that Deni was, maybe not as indicative of what his actual value is, because he was in a much larger role. And in Portland, he's going to be playing. I mean, looking at that roster, it looks like he's going to be playing a smaller one. So, I don't know if they're thinking, hey, for a guy that like projects to actually be a role player on a contender, if we can turn that into 2 first-round picks, 2 seconds, Malcolm Brogdon, who they could flip. I don't know what kind of value you can get for Brogdon.
Another second, probably.
But yeah, like people have been saying first. That's if they could got first, they would have already traded Brogdon.
If you can't get a first for Tyus Jones, you're not getting a first for Malcolm Brogdon. I'm sorry, and I'm okay with both of those guys. I don't really hate either of them. It's just it is what it is. So
he's injury riddled.
Well, I'm going to say I'm okay with them, but I don't want to see Brogdon ever play in a Wizards uniform.
I would rather see Brogdon before I see Tyus Jones. I will say that.
That's actually true. I would say that.
But and again, I don't hate Tyus Jones. It's just the fit doesn't work right now. The timeline isn't right. He's better served going elsewhere. I would rather have the assets he can return than have him be here for a season and get in the way of, say, Jordan Poole or now Bub Carrington. Like, I just don't want that.
Yeah. I just based on what they did last year, where they took the first 50 games pre-deadline to kind of showcase guys who never really had much value.
Yeah.
If we go into opening night and they roll out, and we're way, I know obviously there's a lot to be done between now and then, but if Brogdon, Poole, Kuz, Corey, and Bagley's your starting 5, I mean, Matt, just stab me, take a fork right in the eye,
I would have secured the number 24 pick here, fellas. Sorry to interrupt that. And that pick, well, I don't think it says who the pick is yet.
What happened?
The Wizards got the 24th pick?
Yeah, supposedly.
We had to have traded.
Yeah, we've now traded to move up. Washington
Robinson?
is targeting Kyshawn George out of Miami. Again, I watched half the Miami games this year and they called him Kyshawn, but I've heard draft evaluators like Jonathan Gavoni called him Kyshawn. So I don't know. I actually think it's Kyshawn. So I'm going to try Kyshawn, and if I'm wrong, people will correct me on actual broadcast here. But Miami's Kyshawn George, a freshman. I believe he's out of Sweden originally. 6'8", not a crazy athlete, but he did have a recent huge growth spurt. So I think the young, baby deer legs, he might kind of grow into a little bit, but shot a high percentage on low volume, wasn't super productive at Miami as a freshman, but shows some playmaking chops. So this seems like an Oklahoma City-esque player. And honestly, his best case upside is probably Deni Avdija as a playmaking forward. So we'll see.
The issue with him is, like you said, he's not athletic, not fast, really kind of struggles to move, but he has a good shot. He's like Troy Brown with a jump shot. So, Kevin, what does Troy Brown with a jump shot look like?
You're on some hater shit right now, Oz. Come on, man. Troy Brown with a jump shot. Come on.
I don't know.
Everyone complained about Risa Shea's athleticism. We took a guy 14 who's not great getting to the basket, and we took a terrible George is not a great athlete. He's tested poor athletically. So I'm just searching for the consistency,
I guess I would say I'm hoping that Yoda is just completely wrong. So just to recap here, at 23, the Bucks took AJ Johnson, who I had 68th on my board. And the Wizards have now moved up and picked George, who I had 66th on my board. So this isn't really an auspicious beginning. Now, if I'm going to try to be positive about George, there's 2 things that I like in his numbers. Number one, his 3-point percentage, which was 40.8% on decent volume, not huge numbers, but decent. And then 77.8% on free throws on a very low volume, 1.5 attempts per 40 minutes. So doesn't really rebound, a little bit of playmaking, did get some steals, just 1.5 though.
If anyone of these picks is going to
I don't
spend a
love
lot
this
of
pick.
time,
And then, as you guys have pointed out, he tested. So in Yoda, basically, you get a bonus if you're like a standard deviation above average or more in terms of like agility and vertical, and you get dinged if you're at least a standard deviation below average. Well, he lost points for both his vertical and his agility, so he was a standard deviation below average in each of those categories. So that's not a very promising scores. So he wasn't very productive on the floor, and he's he's like I rated 69 players for this draft, and he's fourth from the bottom. So
yeah, but we won't have to fix his broken jumper.
That's a win. I like it.
You just have to apparently get a good athlete and teach him how to play. So
no, yeah,
he speaks French, Kevin. That's all that matters. We want people to speak French.
I mean, he's someone I've seen mocked to by a lot of people on Wiz Twitter at 26. So, like, if anything, this just kind of illustrates that Dawkins, will move up to get his guy, because I think he would have been there at 26 and maybe not 25. I don't know what kind of intel's out there, but they moved up 2 spots to get him and make sure they got him. So.
Do we know what the trade terms was? Is this part of like a Mitchell Robinson deal by any chance?
The Knicks were the next 2 picks. They weren't going to trade to do it. So I don't see why they would have done that. It says the Wizards are trading 26 and 51 to move up to 24.
Yeah, so we don't have our second rounder.
So the Wizards didn't get a second round pick in this year's draft in the Deni trade. Is that correct?
I don't.
That's correct. The picks they got are later. Let's see. The seconds are in 28 and 30.
Okay, so the Wizards are done with the 2024 NBA draft.
Yeah, we're done.
Unless they make
unless they trade 74 of their future seconds for a fit.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you can, like you said, we can buy another late second round pick. So
do we still have a Rui Hachimura somewhere we can move for 4 seconds so we can get back into this draft?
We're gonna trade all of the seconds to get Rui.
Seconds. I think they could get 4 seconds for Kuzma, maybe even 5.
Yeah, wow.
Wasn't that floated for Tyus Jones too? Hypothetically.
Oh man. All right. This is getting late in the night for us here. We're getting depressing here, guys. Bright side. He speaks French, I think. I'm pretty sure he's Swedish originally, but I do think he played basketball in France growing up. So hopefully that's the case. He's big, he shoots it. Like I said, they were kind of a mess in Miami this year. They were coming off a Final Four trip and grossly underachieved. So I'm hopeful that some of the context there just hurt him a little bit. And like I said, he was a guy that had a late growth spurt. And sometimes it takes guys to just add enough strength to kind of fill out athletically around that. So, like you said, he looks like a baby deer on the basketball court, a baby deer with a sweet jump shot. So if he just kind of beefs up and we see some playmaking and stuff like that, I'm cool with it.
If anyone's going to spend time with the go-go this year, it's him,
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's where he's going to spend at least half the season. I guess, the draft is done. I mean, we got Sarr. I mean, that's really the most important thing here,
Yep.
Do you have your second building block to go with Bilal? And if you do, that's a win. And even Carrington, look, I'm down on Carrington in terms of him as a lead guard because I think you do have to get to the rim to be a lead guard. But he's also young enough where he could potentially change that. And I still think his floor is high enough to be like a good 6-man, So I don't think that's a bad pick at 14 at all,
Yep.
I'm just happy he's not a small guard.
Yeah, we'll take that.
I love it.
We seem to like guys who need to spend the next several years in the weight room and get started.
See, I kind of would have preferred a small guard here. So we'll see. I mean, it's the draft. Hopefully, hope springs eternal. I hope they saw something in him that I don't. But
look how good that hair is. If you could have taken him with that hair versus Johnny Furphy with his mohawk mullet middle part, you got to go George. I mean, no matter what. Furphy he literally got crossed off my draft board when I saw his haircut tonight.
Bub has great hair too.
Bub, great haircut. I mean, like that's important. We got to put him with the great hair squad. Everyone knows how much Oz loves Corey Kispert's haircut.
Yeah. Hey, if Riley is watching, look, I've been out in the sun a lot,
There you go. Very good. Look at that suit too, man. He's going to look great in the fashion show. That's equally important. We all know that. So, hey, look, I actually really like this pick. I'm going to be the dissenting opinion here in terms of, I think this is a really like big swing. And this is the kind of guy I would like to see them take. The best case version of him is a 6'8" shooter playmaker. The guy I comped him to is like a slightly sped up in hopefully a good way version of Kyle Anderson. But with a cleaner, natural jump shot. It took Anderson a while to learn how to shoot. But the big guy who does a little playmaking, Anderson filled out over time. But I think George will really shoot it. I think he can pass the ball a little bit and hopefully guard a couple different positions. So I'm feeling it.
All right. Well, hopefully. It's just production-wise, he reminds me a little of Patrick Baldwin. So also athletically.
Oh, don't say that.
Ooh, that actually does kind of make sense too.
Although I will say Patrick Baldwin, his like standing reach and all that was basically the height of a center. So I still think that might be his future if he could ever figure out how to defend in the middle. That a stretch 5 could be his future.
You actually have to stretch to be a stretch 5, and unfortunately, the shooting has not lived up to expectation.
I was gonna make the same joke. Yeah, I was like,
great minds
needs to hit the outside. Yeah, you just need. What was that one game where he went like 1 for 8 or like 0 for 8 or something? It was like the last.
Was that every game? Season. Sorry, PBJ.
I'm gonna say if you're watching, sorry, PBJ. Like that might.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. But, I accept my fault in that, my role in that.
I have to like the George pick because Anthony Struthers mentioned this in the chat. I did like a shit ton of mock drafts, and I took George in a lot of them at 26. So I'll look real stupid if he ends up busty. So we'll hope that I don't look dumb at the end of the day here for my sake.
Well, hopefully for Wizards fans, I end up looking dumb because, like I say, I have him very poorly rated, and hopefully he turns out good.
Look, I'm hoping. Who else am I supposed to even like on this team besides these rookies? I'm not gonna go buy an Omarui or, I mean,
I think
which champagne do we have? We have one of the Champagne brothers,
Yeah, don't sleep
I was looking at the roster today, updating it, and I was like, this is just bad.
I don't know,
but it's oddly still old and bad, except for these guys.
Omarui was featured in the New Jersey rollout promo stuff, so. That's a key cog in this rebuild.
Yeah.
Hey, Osman, you got to get to the Anthony Gill jersey.
I mean, if the consequences as to what happens with their marketing results, like tie us on the billboard, are any indication, it's a big deal.
Yep.
Oh man,
I think they're going to end up retiring Gill's number.
He's going to be one of the best coaches they've had in years. So they got to fill out the coaching staff with somebody.
Yeah.
You know, the thing is, though, Wizards Twitter seems to be thrilled, so we'll find out how good, in terms of draft evaluation, our fan base is,
These were two guys that were heavily talked about by Wizards Twitter, so I think the takeaway here is that Wizards Twitter is now the front office, and everyone wanted Sarr, a lot of people wanted Bub, and George was mocked a lot of places in Wizards Twitterdom, so that just means like we're running shit here. There's a new sheriff in town.
We're not running the trades, though. We're not running the trades. I refuse to have any ownership in that.
There you go.
I promise it's not a dark omen, but all I can think about is like us for years wishing they took the picks that we wanted, and somewhere a monkey's paw just curled, and it's like, okay, Wizards Twitter.
Here's giving us a taste of our own medicine here. Yeah.
So hopefully that's just my brain just being like, hey, don't be too happy. But no, I'm legitimately really happy with the results of this draft. We got 2 guys that a lot of people wanted, and a third that a lot of people also wanted. Nobody, I don't think it was expected we would get 3 picks. A lot of chatter about Kuz being moved instead of Deni, but like the future is now. Well, once we get Cooper Flag or whoever else next year, then the future is then. Now is now.
The future is at least something that you can kind of envision coming at some point.
One thing's for damn sure: Tommy Shepard is in the past.
Yeah.
Adios, Tommy. All right, one last shout out here. I'm gonna throw it out to our guy in the Twitter chat, Jay Khan. I can't believe these guys care about the Wizards this much. They're unwatchable. Jay Khan, you can literally go find yourself a spin cycle. Don't watch it, douche. Just you can beat it. For everybody else watching this, it's because you care about the Wizards, presumably. And I think this is an overall a good night. And 3 first-round picks. When was the last time we had that? It was probably in the Chris Singleton draft, if I remember correctly. And we all remember how great that worked out. So fingers crossed. This is a little better.
Yeah, that was a frustrating draft, especially in retrospect. It's just one of those that just keeps aging worse.
Yeah, that's hard to do too. Bolts Nation says, I don't know how true this is yet, but the Wizards and Celtics in trade talks around Kyle Kuzma, pick 30 and 2 other first-round picks being considered for Kuzma, they are saying. Bolts Nation, if you can include who they are saying, that it would be very interesting.
Hey, sold.
Getting 2 first back for Kuz.
Let's do it.
Yeah, it said 3. Pick 30 and 2 other first-round picks.
You can get 5 for Michael Bridges.
That's right.
We can get 2 for Kuzma. We got 2 for Deni.
Hey, let's do it, man.
Hey, if they can get 2 or 3. Oh, Kyshawn George just got picked.
Okay.
Who took him?
Looks like the Knicks.
I would have taken him instead.
Interesting. Yeah, he was a guy I think I would have liked in Washington here a little bit as well. Also speaks French, so just would have fit in perfect too. All right. Will, I know you're sitting.
His last name too.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Will, I know you're sitting outside there. Is it hot in South Carolina? Are we sweating you out by keeping you outside here?
It is surprisingly very nice right now. I mean, it's probably like 80 something degrees, but that's good for South Carolina right now.
There you go.
So I'm chilling. I got a fan over me too, so I think that helps a lot.
Good. Well, thank you for powering through for us. We appreciate that. I had to first guy I thought of with the Deni trade, so had to check it out.
And a Knicks fan just texted me saying they got the best French player in the draft. And it just sounds like a Knicks player, you know?
Yeah, right.
A Knicks fan. That's just how they are.
Yeah. Well, they booed Kristaps Porzingis, so maybe they'll like this one and he won't work out.
Yeah.
Trey said, why did we trade our second to New York? We traded our second to New York to move up 2 spots, presumably because we thought that this is who the Knicks were going to take, or that the Knicks with 2 picks in a row were willing to trade that to someone else who wanted to move up to get George. So, yeah, that's probably where we're at. Ryan Moy in the chat, for someone who's been watching this team since 1993. I'll definitely take this draft night. Great show, guys. We appreciate it. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you for contributing to the fundraiser here as well. Yeah,
1993. He's a youngin.
That's right. It's a babe. You're younger than most of the fan base here. I feel like we've got an aging fan base at this point, which is not great. There aren't too many young Wizards fans out there.
I jumped on the bandwagon in 1978. So
yeah, poser.
Watching this Pacom Didier highlights, I'm gonna be.
He looks pretty good.
Yeah, he looks pretty good.
He checks off the Dawkins boxes: positional size, French. I don't know why we didn't take him.
Yeah.
And it's not too late to trade again with the Knicks and get this pick here.
I think maybe he didn't have an accent over his over a vowel in his last name.
Yep. Yeah, that's tough. All right, the check-ins here from everybody. Noel from fan since 1976. Tommy said no young people follow Wizards. Jibu Abraham since 1863. So I think he's got even you beat, Kevin.
I think
that's 1963, but there you go.
1963.
Yeah. Either way, if he's doing it since 1870 or 1863, the vampire genes are working. Rick, fan since 1977, 78 seasons, mediocre or garbage since. Yeah, I mean, that's probably not wrong for the majority of the time. That's rough. If you imagine being a Wizards fan especially if you join the year after they win a title and you're like, yeah, things are on the way up. I didn't live the good years here, but nowhere to go but up from this. And then you never are competitive again for the rest of your fandom. That's tough.
Well, and the peak moments are contemporary, aren't they? Like, it's got to be the Weber years, the Arenas years, and I mean the Weber, like, Strickland era, the Gill years, and like the Wall Beal era. Other than that, did we have any other pops? Because all that's before my time.
No.
No, I mean, they were just. Well, there was like the 1 year where this was in, oh God, this was this was the 87-88 season, and they were a mediocre team all season, but that was like a veteran group, and they pushed the Detroit Pistons, the bad boy Pistons, to 5 games in the first round, back when they only played 5 games in the first round. Mm-hmm. They beat the Pistons in Game 4. I was basically sitting eye level with Manute Bol in that game. And it was a hell of a fun game. I mean, they had Moses Malone, and Darrell Walker was their starting point guard. He was like, it was like 8 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists a game. Tough defender. Jeff Malone was there, like, just hitting mid-range shots. They had Bernard King was on that team. Well, John Williams was coming off the bench. This is before he blew his knee out. So, Manute was coming off the bench blocking shots. It was actually an interesting team, and it was after that series, after they lost that series, John Nash blew the team up. They let Moses leave in free agency. They decided to suck on purpose, and they basically, it took them a very long time to become even like remotely decent again. And then they traded away Weber.
Just an update here. It never makes no sense that the Knicks traded 26 to the Thunder. So that was probably the team looking to get George. I think that checks a lot of their boxes. Good call.
And the Thunder got Dadier?
No, the Knicks got Dadier. The Thunder are taking Dylan Jones.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It does kind of make sense because Isaiah Joe has a team option this year, then he hits free agency, and Aaron Wiggins, I believe, also has a similar team option, then he hits free agency after a year. So like, the Thunder kind of trying to just get a shooter, put in the wings, put on ice for a year to one of those guys or both those guys leave. Could have been the case.
Kevin, what do you think of Dylan Jones?
So interesting. I probably pick him. There are a few guys I would have picked over him, but big guy, and shoots free throws great, and not great from 3, but a lot of production. He went to Weber State, and a ton of production in the non-scoring aspects. He didn't shoot the ball great, but let's see what 1.7 assist turnover ratio. That's pretty good. So it's an interesting move for them. It's sort of another wingy guy, smaller school, but productive. Like I said, there are a few guys I would have picked, but I can see what the Thunder see in him and why they would want to maybe trade up and get him.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, a little update here via text message. My guy Rich Stamen over at Mavs Draft from the Locked On NBA Big Board Show. Again, follow Mavs Draft on Twitter if you want some good draft coverage. Said big W of a night for us Wizards fans. So Mavs Draft, like in the draft, makes me feel even better about it. So there you go, Wizards fans.
Nice.
We'll take it. All right, we're kind of closing out the first round here. We're almost 3 hours into this thing, so they're still milking this for every minute they can over at ESPN. Shout out to them. We are at $1,928 of our $2,000 goal fundraiser for MS. It's the MS Society. So a little bit of room here left to go, Wizards fans. If you're still watching this and you can help us get over the hump here, it's not fun to not reach your goal, especially when you're this close. So if anybody is able to do so and can throw a couple bucks in over on the chat here, we'll nickel and dime this thing across the finish line if we need to. But shout out to just Wizards fans in general. Getting almost $2,000 together for a charity just to watch an NBA draft together is really badass. So thanks to everybody for doing that. And gentlemen, thank you to all 3 of you for generously donating your time here. I mean, this is, hey, look, you could be watching the draft. You could be doing many other things right here that are probably more productive than this. So I appreciate all of you guys for coming on. And Kevin, thank you for being here the entire time with me too.
It has been fun. I appreciate you and for organizing this. It's been a lot of fun.
More fun than the Wizards draft party. So no offense. Sorry, any Wizards staffers were listening to this.
Sorry, my patio lights are on a timer, so I'm gonna use my other lights.
All right, we're gonna sign you off here with that note in mind here, Will. I just appreciate you coming on and giving us your thoughts on Deni. We will find a new guy for you to be the most reasonable fan of moving forward here. So you have some time to pick. Let us know who you're thinking, and I will join you in being the equally biggest fan of that person again.
Yeah, I'll have to find a different stand-based champion. I don't think it's the pool stance. I think he's covered. I think Kuz is well represented. Maybe I'll start the Bub mob. Maybe Anthony Gill needs a very rabid, active, reasonable fan base. So we'll see. But I appreciate you having me on, Matt, Kevin, Oz. Pleasure chatting with y'all. You guys have a good one.
It was fun.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you.
All right, later.
All right, everybody. If you're not following Will Clayton on Wizards Twitter already, go out and do that. Will's great dude, always good vibes. Lior said in the chat that Johnny Davis needs fans. Lior, that is a very well said thing, my friend. I think someone not related to Johnny Davis needs to root for him at this point. That's tough. All right, guys. Any names here? Let's go through best available here. Kevin, who's the next three up on your board?
Let's see. KJ Simpson still.
Okay.
Although he's not supposed to go until like the 40s. So, it's just Yoda likes
him. Next guy on your board. Yeah, I like that.
KJ Simpson, Tyler Smith. Let's see. Yoda likes these little guards though, because then it's like Jamal Shed, Tyler Kolek. I've got Infali Dante on there as well.
I love the man. Older guy won't get drafted just because he's a little bigger and injury prone and stuff like that. But just active as heck and makes things happen on the court. And they are so much better when he plays. And I think that's a really underrated thing too. So
yeah,
I appreciate that.
With Dante, it's like he has that profile of like a successful rim running center. 69.5% on twos last season. Yep. And 2.2 steals per 40 for a big man. That's really good. And then he also had some blocks, ton of turnovers, more turnovers than assists, but it suggests maybe his hands aren't that great. I'm not sure, but 70% at the rim. He rebounded pretty well both ends of the floor.
He had a couple of 2020 games in his career. So that's Infali Dante out of Oregon. We were just talking about there. Kevin mentioned KJ Simpson, probably the best shooter left in the draft here, a Colorado point guard, and best defensive guard left in the draft is Jamal Shed out of Houston. So, I think those are all reasonable names here. Oz, anyone left here? I know you've been a Collier guy. Isaiah Collier, again, point guard out of USC, left on the board here. But any other names you like other than Collier?
He's still there. Christie could be kind of that like wing shooter, but like we already have one. I'm not necessarily saying for the Wizards. AJ Mitchell's still on the board, who I think is a good player, but I think in for him, age probably is dinging him a little bit because he's an older prospect. So
lack of 3-point volume, probably another thing for Mitchell that holds him back a little bit too.
Another thing over there. I'm not a fan, but you still have Filipowski out there, but I'm not a fan, so I don't care that he's still out there.
I'm not surprised at all about him sort of quote unquote slipping.
Exactly. The talk of him going much higher was confusing to me.
The Johnny Furphy one, I think, is the most interesting one. He's the highest guy left on the ESPN best available board here from both Jonathan Gavoni, Draft Express, and Jay Billis, college basketball analyst. So Furphy, again, for anyone not familiar, 6'8", Australian, small forward, played at Kansas this season as a freshman, kind of a fairly bouncy-ish shooter archetype. Not a guy I've really enjoyed watching a lot personally. I probably mentioned this before. I'm like a closet Kansas fan just from the Kirk Heinrich, Drew Gooden days. So shout out Drew. But Furphy was one I thought someone would take a shot on here, just given the age and size and theoretical shooting. The fact that he hasn't gone, it is surprising. Him going somewhere in the next couple picks here would be interesting. Tommy asked in the chat why no one is taking Terrence Shannon. He literally just went with the 27th pick to the Timberwolves. I've lost track of whether they still own that pick or not, but Shannon, a little older, kind of just a downhill offensive player, didn't shoot it until longer in his Illinois career. So, it just only makes sense for like a playoff team, like a Minnesota that needed some scoring on the wing. So he fits them.
Yeah, I kind of like Shannon. Like you said, he decent shooting, 57% on twos, so that's pretty good. Didn't rebound, and not a lot of defensive stats production, but that's an interesting pick there for Minnesota or whoever ends up with him. I mean, he could be a successful pro. He's already 24, I think. So
yeah, this pick didn't. I don't think this pick moved as part of the Dillingham.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, I mean, that said, we're at the part of the draft where we find out every pick is on the move.
Yeah.
Another shout out here. Shout out my coworker Wyatt in the chat. Those guys are probably out at dinner here in California, checking in on us a little bit. So thank you, Wyatt. Shout out Kevin, Keena, Bill, Paul, Jung, the whole crew over at the FAA for tuning in here for a second. Appreciate you guys. Hopefully I can join you here soon if they will ever end this first round, and I can go get a dinner and drinks and all kinds of good stuff because it's only 8 o'clock here in the West Coast, which is amazing to watch sports and have a night afterwards. So, all right. We'll keep this going through the end of the first round. Like I said, we're really close to our fundraising goal here. So if anybody can help us get over the hump here, I would definitely appreciate it. Let's see. Okay. Yannick and Sosa again. Oh my goodness. Yannick is killing it for us, guys. He might be the most valuable second round pick the Wizards have taken in a really long time. Just given his fundraising ability here. So appreciate you, Yannick. Just got us over the hump. We are officially over $2,000. $2,000.28 raised for MS Society. That's our society to end multiple sclerosis that affects several members of our Wizards community. So we have done another good deed here, fellas. So shout out Wizards Twitter.
Good stuff.
All right, guys, there's a couple more picks left in the draft here. We've talked about our kind of personal favorites here. Anyone just that you're surprised hasn't been picked based on public consensus? Ryan Dunn just now went to Denver at 28, assuming they're keeping that pick. Oh, that's the one that goes to Phoenix. So Phoenix will now be adding Ryan Dunn. A little surprising to me. If I were them, I would still be taking Collier because they need a point guard. How does Dunn really get on the floor unless he's a small ball 5 around, KD and
right?
Beal
You need shooting around
Booker.
those guys.
Yeah,
I guess they are picking him for the defense, but I mean, okay, if you think he's the best player, fine. But.
Yeah. Also, just circling back to this, Oklahoma City sent 5 second-round picks to the Knicks to get Dylan Jones at 26. That's insane to me. I guess if you have that many picks, you can do it. They were just like, well, 2 second-round picks get it done? How about 3 second-round picks? What about 4? You just keep throwing second-round picks at Oklahoma or at New York until they're like, okay, fine, take our guy already.
The Knicks have to get their picks back after giving all of them. Well, at least some of them anyway.
Yeah, getting a pick back in the future. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, very interesting. Jazz on the board here. Any thoughts on which direction they'll go, fellas?
My guess, just wild guess here, Furphy. That'd be my guess.
I could see that.
Yeah, makes sense. Trying to think who else might fit the mold there. Tyler Smith makes sense there too. Your guy, Kevin.
He would be a nice pick there. I think another guy, again, he's not slated to go till later, but I think he could actually be the kind of player that the Jazz need, and that would be Tristan Newton. I do have I have him rated just about in this spot. But he's got some size and he rebounds and, he plays with some toughness, rebounds, does some playmaking. A little older, but they could use some size and toughness in the backcourt. And I think
he could be their Chris Dunn of the future. You know, that defensive guard with some size.
He can shoot a little better than that, can't he? So that's damning.
Yeah. I mean, that's the question.
The pick is in for Utah. It is Isaiah Collier.
Okay. I mean, he fits what they seem to like out of guards. You know, some scoring and some playmaking. Colin Sexton is probably like a reasonable comp for him.
Yeah, and
kind of a
Sexton has
downhill
been
player.
rumored to always be on the move. You know,
right.
I do like that Collier pick for Utah. You know,
to come out of the draft with him and Cody Williams, they've got some guys with some upside. You know,
they shout out Pac-12. I guess they were watching a lot of West Coast basketball in the last year of the Pac-12, so that's their time zone, I guess.
Hey, Kevin, how much of a factor is this? Is curiosity, like location, where you are relative to like what conference you're near? Does that actually really factor in? West Coast teams take West Coast players, East Coast teams take. Does that ever? There does seem to be some of that, like where you pay attention to a conference that you're closer to. You know,
that could be. I haven't really paid attention to it, so that's a good question. There's probably I could see somebody running a Google Maps analysis on this. That'd be interesting.
All right. Donation still coming in here. This one is from a coworker of mine, one of the smartest people I know. I'm privileged to get to work with, Mr. William Bill Lash. Thank you for contributing, Bill. Very nice of you to do that, and just awesome work as always. So our work team has been killing it out here on the West Coast all week, guys. So, you know, just keeping the good vibes going with another Wizards draft. Like, this is a Matt Modderno day from start to finish here. So no complaints.
Well, if the Wizards trade into this pick,
that'd be sick. Yeah.
That would be fun. Because there's one guy in particular I would love to see them actually take a swing on, and that would be Tyler Smith. And picking him 30th would be perfect.
I'm a little surprised he's on the board right now, given some of the names that have gone. A 6'10" guy in shoes that shoots it with like enough, athletic upside to at least passably defend other fours and maybe some fives and maybe some threes. Like, that seems like a valuable archetype guy for every team in the league at this point. Size with shooting, and if he does anything else more than that, that's a win. If you can get that dude at 30, honestly, if I were Boston, I would just take him. Like, can he be another 5-out player for you?
Yeah.
That's a no-brainer pick.
Yeah, if Boston isn't trading him, like you say, I would just pick him. Yeah. I mean, he's not going to help this season, but he's potentially a bridge to future years. So I just ran him through my comps list, and let's see. What do we have? Glenn Rice Jr. shows up as a comp. Another G League guy get drafted out of the G League. Malik Beasley shows up there. So Tobias Harris.
I have to admit, I was super excited when Glenn Rice Jr. got picked here.
And
same.
That list a little ways.
That summer league was a lot of fun.
Yeah. That Glenn Rice Jr. Summer League MVP was like the highlight of Wizards Summer League teams for the last 25 years, probably. Just him cooking everybody. Yeah, interesting. Shout out Leo in the chat. Thanks for all the great commentary throughout. And he was updating us on the Shams picks quicker than I could refresh them. So appreciate him doing that.
Nice.
Yeah, that's always helpful here. I love this too. So I mentioned Sam Hershey earlier in the show, and Sam just got out of a concert and is now checking to see what the Wizards did with the draft and the Deni trade and all this stuff. So I love that for people when they just like, you open up your phone and all your friends and family are like, hey, you're the one Wizards fan I know. What do you think of what your team did? Your mentions get blown up. It's the best. All right, guys, last pick. Predictions. Who are we taking for the Boston Celtics?
Bill Simmons was making the pick. He would take Bronny.
If Bill Simmons was taking the pick, he would either take Bronny or whoever the best white player left on the board is. So it's probably Johnny Furphy at this point.
I was going to say, wouldn't that be Furphy? I mean, if it was me picking for Boston, the pick would be Tyler Smith. I could see them. And another choice that I would have for them would be potentially Antonio Reeves. Again, a older player who can really shoot.
I blew it, guys. I was close. I got the white guy right, but they took Baylor Shireman out of Creighton, which is the one person whiter than Johnny Furphy, despite his middle part mohawk mullet combo.
Now, I got to say, Furphy is better than Shireman, but no, actually, you know what? I've got them rated literally with the same score, like the same basic score right next to each other.
Shireman's crazy productive, but older. Furphy has more upside, but is younger. But Shireman, I think, really shoots it. He was like a flamethrower at San Diego State with a little more offensive emphasis on him at Creighton. Didn't shoot quite as well, but still a high 30 shooter, like 88% from the free throw line this year. Averaged 9 rebounds a game as a 6'6" guard, 4 assists. Like he's a guy productive across the court. I think he's going to be a really good pick for them. And if they don't keep a guy like a Sam Hauser long term, I think Shireman could be the guy to come in and.
Yeah, Shireman barely sat down. I mean, he played almost 37 minutes a game.
Yep. All right, gentlemen, we did it. We got the Wizards through the first round with 3 picks. We sent our guy Deni Avdija on his way to Portland, where hopefully they love and appreciate him. And I mean, interesting draft. We took the no-brainer pick, Alex Sarr at number 2. Took a bigger upside swing young guard at number 8 or number 14 in Bub Carrington, and then another young forward in Kyshawn George out of Miami. So, sort of varying opinions on the pick, but they clearly have a type that they're going for is youth with positional size, and they're willing to take some swings. And I'm kind of not mad at it. So overall, I'm feeling good. I would give them a B+ for the draft. I think that's my grade. Kevin, your thoughts on a grade here?
Yeah, I'd give him probably a solid B. I mean, Sarr, I think, is going to be the best player in the draft. And it's nice that he dropped. It's nice that Atlanta seemed to think that Reese Shea is going to be, apparently they think he's going to be the best player in the draft. I can't say I think that's a great pick, but I'm glad that Sarr fell to the Wizards there at 2. And I don't, I'm not as big a fan, not as high on Carrington as a lot of other folks are, but I can certainly see the argument for him. So I'm good with that. Kyshawn or George, I don't know. I didn't like him much. I don't love that pick. I would have rather it be somebody else. But if Dawkins turns out right, and if this guy can come in and contribute, realistically, guys picked that late aren't going to be major contributors anyway. Certainly not at first. So he's got some time to grow into being a player.
Grades, and I know you got to get out of here too in a second. So, thoughts?
The Sarr pick, you got to give an A. Carrington, I'd probably give a B. Kyshawn, I don't want to crush any rookie, so I'll just say a C. Okay, so averages out to a B, but with Sarr being a higher pick, B+. I think a B+ is fair because like Kevin said, they got who might be the best player in the draft, and if you do that, nothing else even matters, regardless of what happens with these picks. And I do think Bub at least comes with a high enough floor. So I'm solid with a B+. Could be an A if Sarr develops into what he could develop into. If they get anything from Kyshawn,
there goes Oz. All right. His internet took care of that for him.
That's what happens when you come in with an F- grade on a guy.
That's right. Yeah. The StreamYard streamed him right out of here for us. So they didn't want to hear any negativity there. I'm higher on both those other 2 picks than both of you guys are. So I think I genuinely would have given them an A. The fact that they have to give up Deni to get that pick in this year's draft, I'm factoring into my grade. I think there were probably other ways to get back into this draft, and that's what I would have tried to do. Could you have traded Corey in a 2nd-round pick or Corey in 26 to get 14 or something like that? Like, that would have been more appealing to me than giving up Deni for what they got back from him. If I were going to move Deni, I would have wanted to pick in next year's draft.
Yeah, it does seem like I guess that's part of what, I wouldn't say bothers me, but I guess it diminishes the return a little bit for Avdija. Is yes, they got to pick 14, but then everything else is out there a ways. They get a 2nd rounder in 2028, another like mid-level 1st rounder in likely for mid-level 1st round pick in 29, and then another 2nd in 2030. And so we're talking, 6 years from now, they're still going to be getting paid off on the Avdija deal, and the next first doesn't come for 5 more drafts.
That's
so
tough.
I get thinking long term and getting value and that kind of stuff, but it would be also good to get players now.
Right. I'm with you for sure. I've had a couple people now ask me if I'm going to summer league. My whole summer is just like work trip, personal trip, work trip, personal trip. So if I can sneak in a 2-day pit stop in Vegas, I like this group enough that I might have to consider it. Maybe we get a little group together and see our guys in action. You got to go for the first couple games though, because the Sarr is only going to play the first 2 or 3 games. So first weekend is the move for people looking to go. If you do plan a trip to summer league and you've never been before, hit me up. I will give you tips on what to do and how that works. Merle said in the chat, nobody is giving up a 2025 draft pick. You might be right. I think given where a lot of these teams are, you want to squirrel as many of those away as possible. So that's a great point, Merle. All right. If you were watching this, which there's still a good amount of you that are currently watching us wrap this thing up, please hit that little like button for us on YouTube. We really appreciate that. We are presented by multiple sponsors here, presented by Stateside Vodka, the Surfside Hard Iced Teas, presented by Bet Online, which is also, those are our 2 perennial sponsors, and just sponsored by you guys doing cool things as a fan community here and raising money for a good cause. That was the MS Society. We'll kind of close the fundraiser here with the show on, in terms of live stream coverage. But if people want to donate after the fact here, I will shout you out on the next show or whatever the case may be. That's a never ending sort of, offer. You do a nice thing for the community. We'll give you a plug on the show here for you, your business, your band, whatever you want to do. Think that's only fair. So Kevin, you've been here the whole time, man. 3 hours and 15 minutes in. I owe you big time. Next time you're in the DC area, dinner, beers, whatever you want are on me. Glass of wine, sounds probably great. A better choice. But thank you, man. You're always a rock, and I appreciate you doing this.
Hey, this is so much fun. I'm glad I have come to love doing this with you. So, we should find more excuses to do stuff like this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the other thing for everybody watching this. We got some stuff cooking for this season. I think I'm far enough along in talking this out with some folks to just kind of announce it here on the show. We're going to try to bring you live pregame and postgame coverage for as many games as possible during the year. Just give you another kind of hopefully objective, fan-centric alternative and analysis. I've got a couple guys lined up beyond just Jihadi that have played professional basketball at different levels. So I think they'll kind of jump in with us when they can, offer a little different perspective. I might grab 1 or 2 of the local college players just to kind of throw a little flavor on here too, as they're willing to do it. So just kind of bring in some of the best and brightest from Wizards Twitter and the other, members of the community here, other podcasters and stuff like that, to just give you a couple quick, hey, here are players to watch, all those kinds of things. So hopefully Kevin and I can get to do more of these throughout the season here too. We're all watching the games anyway, so another chance to kind of bring everybody together. So stay tuned for that. I think that'll be a fun wrinkle for this year's coverage. All right, Kevin, let's do this thing, man. We'll get out of here. Enjoy the rest of your night. It's late there, even where you are. I've got stuff to do here on the West Coast, hopefully. Everybody go grab a celebratory drink, and we'll be back to talk about this. I will be not doing anything live for the second round tomorrow. It's too early, but we'll cover it over the weekend here or something. Thank you all to everybody who listened to this. Check this out. Presented by betonline.ag. Like I said, donate to MS Society, and go Wizards. All right, we'll check y'all next time.